I know.
Shut up now.
This meeting is being recorded. Okay, welcome all, and thank you. A special thanks to Charlene, actually, because we had a 3+ hour meeting together last night, and here she is again.
Hats off.
This is going to be the. I'm sorry, Renee. What?
I was just giving you guys a round of applause, P&Z.
Oh,
all
well,
the work
thank
you did.
you.
Thank you.
Just part of the job. Just part of the job. Charlene deserves thanks. They pay me. So I'm going to pull up the draft on screen share.
Can I?
And then yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say, I don't know if this is the appropriate time to say it, or can I say it? And if I say it and
Can't take it
I'm
back.
not saying, huh?
You can't take it back.
Oh, that's fine.
It's recorded. It's recorded.
I just want to let everyone know, seeing as I've just been through a rewrite with some things, my beg and plead to everyone that's on this commission or committee or whatever we're called is that if you have any questions, any concerns, any disagreements, that we all, while we're working on it, say it right while we're in this meeting. Don't wait for a draft and another draft and a final draft and a final draft. Let's work it so that when it's done, us as a team feels like it's presentable and I don't show up at the last hour and say, oh, well, I have 27 problems, and you're all sitting there thinking, we just sat there and she didn't say one word. So if it's stupid, if it doesn't make sense, if you think it's gonna cause a problem, please cause a problem, so we can get it done and it's accurate according to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlene. For those of us who are wondering, that is in reference to a very long process that we have essentially concluded with planning and zoning. The regulations have been voted for adoption, thank God. Okay, so I'm going to pull up the draft via screen share because I think the best thing to do is to just go through section by section, sort of read it, and then make comments as we go. So tonight's going to be one of the longer ones because it's all that stuff that I drafted before. I just want to say that, oops, go back to share screen. Here we go. I just want to say there is nothing about any of this that is sacred text. I wrote it on the fly. I'm having trouble scrolling again. I hate that. Here we go. I wrote it on the fly, off the top of my head, just to have some material to hang our hats on and, you know, like it, hate it, whatever. I will say we can probably skip the introduction because that's just acknowledgments. So we'll just. And some of these first sections probably.
Tara,
Yeah. Hi, Karen.
can you make it any bigger?
Sure.
Probably.
Scroll in the right-hand corner. On the bottom there, you've got 100%, make it 200 or 150 down here on the right. On your right-hand corner.
Well, once I screen share, it looks different, George.
Yeah, but
so
still, if you kick it up a notch, I think you'll be, go down. Go down in the right-hand corner.
No, I have other ways of doing it.
Okay. I was going to say the vernier is probably faster, though. There you go. That's 200%.
Fortunately,
I told
you
you.
can't see it all. I would go down a little bit, Tara, so you can see the full
I can do that too.
Go down to 175 or something.
Okay.
I was happy at 100, but.
Problem with Windows is about 10 ways of doing everything, you know.
That's
True.
better.
How's that, Renee?
Pretty good.
I can go over a little bit.
Right there. For me, anyway.
Okay. All right, so let's just start, and I will read it aloud because I can't think of a better way to do this so that we can all follow along. Stop me at any time. And anyway, as I was saying, there's nothing about this that's anything written in stone. Like I said, this is just a starting point. If I'm totally off my nut, because as we all know, I'm just a carpetbagger here, just stop me and I'll fix it. All right, town overview 1.1 location. Thompson is located in the northeastern corner of Connecticut, bordered by Massachusetts to the north, Rhode Island to the east. Woodstock, Connecticut to the west, and Putnam, Connecticut to the south.
That's where I'm
Thompson
going to
is
stop
25
you.
minutes. Yeah,
I would change the times to miles because, I mean, that's kind of relative. Some people say it's 35 minutes, 45 minutes to Providence, and you've got an hour. I would personally change those to miles.
fair. Change to miles.
You have people like me that drive fast, so it's hard to gauge.
Yeah, an hour for me is probably 45 minutes for Ken. Miles
You,
and miles. Okay. I'm marking up on my hard copy because that's easier for me than typing and holding the phone to my ear in the draft. Due to the ease of highway access and broader diversity of employment opportunities, a high proportion of Thompson residents commute to work in the greater Worcester area rather than finding employment in Thompson or neighboring communities in Connecticut. Where residents do seek employment in nearby Connecticut towns, neighboring Putnam shows the highest number of commuters from Thompson. Within Thompson, the largest employers, and before I continue, let me just say, I just took this off CERC data, so I'm not convinced that this is correct. The largest employers are the Thompson Public Schools, Superior Bakery. Is Naram-Pack what
yes,
became Nutmeg Container?
yes.
It is? Okay,
Yeah.
so that's really Nutmeg Container, and we don't know if that's really true anymore. What about Numa Tool? They're still there, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So double check that, and I might just leave off 4 and go to 3. But that was CERC data as of the 2019 town profile that I pulled. The town of Thompson has over 100 miles of roadways, including 6 state roads. The town is bisected by Interstate 395, with the historically identified villages of East Thompson, Quadic, and Thompson Hill falling on the east of the highway, and Fabian, Grosvenordale, Mechanicsville, North Grosvenordale, Quinnebog, West Thompson, and Wilsonville on the west. The town covers an area of 48.7 square miles with a population of 9,602 for an average density of one. Yep.
You need, as far as my screen, you need to scroll.
Yeah, I can't see it either.
Oh, sorry. It is hard to scroll and read. Yeah, just yell at me every once in a while. We're good. In fact, maybe I'll read it off the screen instead of reading it off my page. Hold on. The town covers an area of 48.7 square miles with a population of 9,602 for an average density of 197 residents per square mile. 2 significant water bodies with associated lands are West Thompson Dam, an impoundment of the Quinnebog River covering 1,900 acres and managed by the Army Corps of Engineers, and Quadic Reservoir and State Park covering more than 600 acres.
They
French River
prefer always putting the U.S. in front of the Army. We get yelled at all the time about that.
Very good. U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. All right, and Quadic Reservoir and State Park covering more than 600 acres. The French River passes through the geographic center of Thompson, north to south, converging with the Quinnebog River in Mechanicsville. Other significant water bodies include Grosvenordale Pond and Little Pond. For whatever it's worth, that second paragraph is pretty much kiped from the existing PoCD. Was that Karen?
Yeah, what about the 5 Mile River? I mean, I don't know. I mean, is that our connection to Webster Lake, kind of the watershed?
All right, I'm making marginal notes here. Add reference to.
I know when Carolyn talks about it, she talks about those 3 rivers.
Yeah. But the French other significant water bodies include Grosvenordale Pond and Little Pond, and we'll add some reference to the 5 Mile River. Okay. Farms play an important role in the landscape, history, and identity of the community. As published in a 2018 promotional brochure produced by the Thompson Agricultural Commission, shown in Figure A, and that's highlighted there to remind me that I need to add Figure A. There are 14 active farm sites in the town, including a handful of forward-facing farms with a retail or agritourism presence. The role of agriculture will be, yep.
Now, I understood that there were close to 20 farms. Not all are in that brochure. So that would be something.
Okay, how can we account
check with-
for the additional?
Well, those are the only ones that chose to contribute or be in that brochure. It doesn't mean they're not active farms. So I think I'm a conversation with Lynn or somebody on ag. I mean, I don't think you can leave out farms just because they chose not to be in that brochure.
You could go, there
Fair.
are more than 14 active farms. I mean, who knows, 10 years from now.
Right.
Yeah, but you're going
That's
on
true.
current. You're supposed to be trying to do current, right?
Well, it is a 10-year update, so there's a certain amount of projection, but this is
Right.
more current conditions. Yes, I would agree, Renee. Okay, so adjust to accommodate more farms, including a handful of forward-facing farms with a retail or agritourism presence. The role of agriculture will be further explored in section 6, 8, 10, 13, 16, and 17. Housing in Thompson skews heavily towards single-family residences, which make up 77.9% of the town's housing stock. That proportion is significantly higher than other communities in either the county, 66.2%, or the state, 59.2%. Of the homes in Thompson, roughly one-third, 32%, was built prior to 1950, which is consistent with the age of homes in both the county and the state. Issues of housing diversity and affordability will be addressed separately in section 7 of this document. Thompson is host to a number of vacant or underutilized late 19th and early 20th century mill sites, several of which have been identified as brownfields. Of these, the most notable are the pair of mill sites that bookend the historic downtown area of North Grosvenordale. The remains of the Belding Corticelli site at 630 Riverside Drive and the 750,000 square foot River Mill site at 929 Riverside Drive. Both of these properties have had assessments.
Scroll
that-
up. Scroll.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I
Tyra,
can't,
what's the benefit of identifying the fact that we're brownfield sites? I'm trying to figure out why that's something why we want to highlight. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but why would we want to highlight that?
Is this supposed to be a location section? Isn't that what it's titled, location?
it is.
So you're describing the location. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
the brownfield.
I mean, we are definitely going to,
It's not exactly an
ahead,
asset.
George.
I guess I wouldn't raise my hand and say, "Oh, we're brownfields." That means the cost of development's going to go through the roof because you're going to have to, remediate the existing site. I mean, I keep wondering why we'd want to highlight that.
well, it's a fair point. I would say that in as far as this is a description of circumstances, and they are brownfields, and brownfields are eligible for things like grant funding, that it may be worth mentioning that they are there. I mean, the document should be exploring challenges as well as assets.
Right.
Well, put it in the SWOT.
We could highlight that elsewhere. Yeah.
Put in the SWOT analysis,
Yeah.
saying, strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. But I keep thinking that if you're prospective grant writer, a donor of some sort, oh, brownfield, that's great. That's going to raise our. I mean, as a real estate guy, I'm going, oh, that's not good. That's going to cost me more money. That's how I read that. So it might be wrong.
So maybe
That's
move out
my
of this
opinion.
section.
Well, I'm not saying not to say it, but if anyone's going to do their diligence, they'll come out depending on the site. But I don't know if I'd want to lead with it in the intro. That's all. I'm not saying not to disclose. And again, anyone that's going to develop commercial real estate is going to do a phase 1 and phase 2 if appropriate. So I just keep wondering why we want to say that. Anyway.
Well,
That's just my opinion.
I guess if we're continuing into the paragraph, and maybe this changes your assessment, maybe it doesn't. Both of these properties have had assessments performed under various Connecticut DECD brownfield grant programs and will be addressed in greater depth in several additional sections of this document. The presence of so many former industrial sites represents both a significant challenge to Thompson and a significant opportunity in terms of future revitalization of the local economy and its housing stock. So does that contextualize it, or would you still say just address that later?
I just raise my hand and say, I don't know if it's a good spot, at least in my impression. That's all. That's one voice.
Okay.
Just one voice.
Yeah,
But I think it's.
I've got it.
Go ahead.
No, you, Renee. I do too much talking.
I was just thinking it's still a big factor though within the town. And I'm not looking at this, and maybe I am looking at it wrong. So just as we're doing this, I'm hoping this is call for brainstorming, that this isn't necessarily a sales pitch to potential investors. This is us doing a report because the state says we have to. I'm not saying we shouldn't put our best foot forward, but this is the facts of life. I don't know, just a thought.
Who looks at it? Like this is when somebody is looking to move into town, or a development, or developer?
Did we start with the purpose here? There's got to be a purpose for this.
Well, yeah, we skipped over the introduction and acknowledgements because it was mostly statutory stuff, and given how much we've got to go over, I didn't, but maybe we should go back. So let me, I'll go back.
I
That's
think
fine.
like statutory and all that is great, but if it's not really the heart of who we are, then I don't really care. When I see all this chapter 126, yada, 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 okay, what is this really for? That's all I really want to know. All the other stuff you took time to put in there, it's in there, you have the sections, but like the purpose of this.
Purpose
So
is for development.
that is in the introduction.
Okay.
I read
So
about
I'll skip over this.
I read
Go ahead.
about 50 commercial real estate appraisals every week throughout the United States. I'm looking for opportunities from a development standpoint and from a risk assessment standpoint. So, you know, things like when they raise red flags early, it's just sort of like it's off-putting. That's what my concern is with the brownfields. I'm not saying we shouldn't disclose it at some point, but let's get them warmed up to let's start out by getting them in love with us before we give them the
Butter
treat.
them up.
Yeah, well, that's just that sales pitch thing. You know, let's get the give them the warm fuzzies first before you get to the cold pricklies.
Yeah,
Anyway.
and then they're like, oh, well, they have a few Brownsfield. That's all right. They were everything before that was great.
I want them to keep listening. We want to draw them in and my point is, let's draw them into the dialogue. That's all. And to your excellent point, Charlene, is like, who's our audience, right? It goes back to a comment I think we had on an earlier call was, who is our audience and who is it that's going to read?
Yeah, I want to say Dennis raised that, but if we skim this section, because a lot of it does talk about the statutory stuff, anyway. Maybe that will answer some of those questions. So the PoCD is a guidance document that articulates the vision and priorities of the community as it plans for its future, and it also enumerates specific action items to pursue over a 10-year period to realize that stated vision. As an expression of community values and priorities, this iteration of the Thompson PoCD can be viewed as the fulfillment of a series of civic engagement events hosted by the Branding Implementation Subcommittee of the Economic Development Commission and the Office of Planning and Development starting in 2019. In those exercises, regard for local identity and affinity for preserving community history consistently emerged as high priorities. In this context, that may be best understood as a desire to protect the natural, agricultural, and historic assets already in place in Thompson. Any pattern of development proposed for the next decade, therefore, must take these factors into account and not thoughtlessly disrupt the unique fabric of the community. This document will articulate means by which Thompson will build on its past and present strengths in ways that look forward rather than backward. In accordance with statutory requirements, among other topics, this PoCD will address goals related to conservation of open space, improvements to walkability and bikeability, which is not a real word, but what are you going to do? Expansion of housing choice, including affordable housing, and protection and preservation of agricultural resources. Additional consideration will be given to the development of sustainable local food systems, the strengthening of the public education system, and the development of the local economy to best capitalize on Thompson's extensive outdoor recreation assets.
Before you go any further,
Yep.
Are you looking for any input on this piece?
Yes, I was thinking it was drier than this, so yeah, that's fine. Go ahead, Renee.
I like the talk about you're going to build on this, and according to the where is the place I'm looking at? Any pattern of developed proposed for the next decade, therefore, will take these factors into account. I mean, I think it's not like this is the town writing for itself. It's not saying, I think. So I just think we'll take that and we'll, instead of thoughtlessly disrupt, flip that so it's a positive and not a negative statement. I don't
Okay,
know.
so
And not
rephrase.
yeah, rephrase. It's just weird to thoughtlessly disrupt the unique fabric. You know what I mean? There's a better way to phrase it. I'm sure you can.
Okay,
Fair.
fair.
Let culture and heritage or maintain the,
Hi, Leslie, by the way.
hi. I'm cooking dinner. That's why my video's not on. Multitasking.
And preserve the unique fabric of the community.
Yeah, that's good. Preserve.
Okay, I'm making my marginal notes here. Okay, so yada, 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 responsibility of PZC, members of boards, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this is relevant again. I think it is our goal that by taking stock of our current conditions and identifying our challenges and aspirations, Thompson will be able to chart a navigable path toward a vibrant, sustainable, and resilient future. The PoCD will provide a framework for decision-making by municipal government, private businesses, and other organizations as they pursue their goals within Thompson. So that was the long-form answer to the very simple question, who is this for? Do you guys feel that that answers that question satisfactorily?
I think so.
Yep. Good for me.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that final paragraph is just housekeeping that we can definitely skip to get back to where we were. And does everybody generally agree with George's point that we don't want to dive right into the idea of brownfields just from a salesmanship point of view?
Yeah, I think put it later, further in the document somewhere. We're getting more specific.
I think both of, start at both of and drop it from there. The paragraph above is suitable.
I'm sorry, Joe, I didn't completely follow that.
You have a sentence that starts with, both of these properties have had assessments. And I think if you start at both of and drop that part, the first part of the sentence is probably, of the paragraph is suitable.
I see. So let me see if I understand what you're saying. You're suggesting that the paragraph should read, Thompson is host to a number of vacant or underutilized late 19th and early 20th century mill sites. Of these, so just skipping that second part of that sentence, of these, the most notable are the pair of mill sites that bookend the historic downtown area of North Grosvenor-Dale, the remains of the Belding Corticelli, and the river mill site at 929 Riverside Drive. So you're saying to include that sentence, both of these properties have had assessments performed, or drop it and talk about all that later?
Rest of the part can be talked about later. You might want to also include the one mill that's being restored right now in Wilsonville too.
That's true. And when I started drafting this, that wasn't fully underway. So Wilsonville.
And I don't know if it's appropriate to add the renovated Thomas Mill at this point too, as you're talking about our.
If I could add a couple of comments here, you know, vacant and brownfields, that's sort of, in my view, in my lexicon, pejorative terms. So if I was writing this, I would say Thompson has available two opportunities to develop late 19th century and early 20th century mill sites.
Yeah,
several of which
gotcha.
have been, you know, are available for financing or something, or, you know, available, or have been considered for financing. You know, I'm not going to, you know, a cynic would look at this and say, oh gosh, the downtown's boxed by two rundown, you know, derelict properties, which is not the case, right? And it's all in the eye of the beholder. A developer looks at this and says, I can buy it for less than market. I can take an asset for $10 million and turn it into a $50 million return and generate a 50% internal rate of return. That's what my investors want. Okay, so that's how I look at that. But I say vacant, brownfield. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that let's put it somewhere else. Or hey, when they do their diligence, they're gonna find that out. But why why start out on, if there's 10 towns they're looking at, they go, oh, forget this one, forget this one. Let's go after this town. This sounds like a good spot. So I'm trying to put that hook. What's that hook? What makes Thompson, attractive to people? And maybe I'm,
I love it, George.
sales guy, but I mean,
Good.
I'm just trying to, that's,
Yeah, no, that's good stuff, because I just think of it in terms of the development potential, from the community perspective. So yeah, that's absolutely valuable.
the guy you had up here from
anybody-
South Carolina was like hook. He could see it. He's a broker, right? He's taking a percentage off the top. On a $80 million deal, he's getting, 2% or 1% or 50 bips or something, 50 basis points, 0.5%. That's still a lot of money. And, he can see it.
Yeah.
He's going to bring people in. He's going to pitch it, get the federal the funding, the government funding, all the development funding, and he's going to walk away, and, investors are going to carry the risk, and the town is going to, make it work. So anyway, that's the world
Sold.
I live in. All right. Anyway, I'm sorry. I didn't
No,
mean
you
to take
sold
the
me,
mic.
George. It's good.
Just let's make it.
I
We
have
want
no
to pitch
problem
this.
with that.
We want them to warm up. They want to say, hey, this is a great. We should look closer at Thompson, because they know every town in Eastern Connecticut's got one of these places. So they aren't going to be shocked. They aren't like babes in the woods. They're going to say, oh my gosh, the building's vacant. Well, yeah, I got it. Half of there's 2 billion square feet of retail space in America, and there's only demand for 1 billion. What do you think the rest is? It's vacant. Anyway, sorry.
Anybody have anything else on this section?
So if I'm
I'm good.
hearing, we're going to include the mills, but we're not including the condition they're in, which I can agree on putting in later. Yes.
Correct. Not off the bat. We're gonna use the salesmanship tactic.
Sounds good.
Sorry, guys. Yeah.
All right.
Derelict's in the eye of the beholder. I see opportunity. That's why I moved here 20 years ago, guys. So, it is great. It's getting better.
I say the same thing about my ancient house.
Where else can I buy 30 acres for like $20,000 with my own pond? I mean, it doesn't happen in Connecticut.
Okay, page 6.
Yep. 1.2, history, I expect. Well, a lot of this was contributed by Joe Imartino. I presume that it is all much more accurate than whatever the hell I wrote. For thousands of years prior to European colonization, the area was territory for indigenous peoples, including the Nipmuc. Large land tracts were purchased from indigenous leaders following King Philip's War. One large landowner, Major Robert Thompson, gave his name to the district. Thompson, by 1730, had established an independent church and formally broke away from Killingly, incorporating as a town in 1785. Near the epicenter of the Industrial Revolution started by Samuel Slater, Thompson developed a thriving mill economy which persisted well into the 20th century. Unlike more urbanized New England mill towns, Thompson never lost its connection to agriculture and other aspects of its rural identity during the prominence of the industrial era. Because the residents of Thompson have identified preservation and promotion of its historic assets and character as priorities, this document will seek to identify ways in which the town can capitalize on that history to drive economic development. I'm going to strike seek to right off the bat. That's more complicated than it needs to be. To that end, special attention will be given to several specific sites or groups of sites as follows. Historic mills. Thompson was home to several production mills when the textile industry was dominant in Connecticut. Thompson's Three Rivers, the Quinebaug, French, and 5 Mile all had significant mills in operation. Strike the S. I wasn't sure I transcribed this correctly, Joe, so let me know if I got it wrong. First in grist, fulling, and trip hammer work?
Correct.
Okay. And later in cotton, wool, and other textile materials. Some of those sites, although underutilized, show continued activity into the present day. So now we're back in the brownfield thing. 6 of those sites have been identified as brownfield properties in an inventory compiled by the Connecticut Brownfields Initiative at UConn School of Engineering. Because the mills were dependent on flowing water to drive their operations, these remaining mill properties are found on Riverside Drive, Route 12, parallel to the French River. From north to south, those properties are...
You have to scroll up.
Oh, sorry.
And
I'm just looking at the paper.
as you're doing that in the previous paragraph, you might want to say town of Killingly. If this is for people who are not, local.
Yeah. What's
Look
a
away
Killingly?
from the town
Who
of.
was Killingly anyway?
Some guy. It was all for some guy.
Wasn't there a thing about the Thompson or this area being the nexus of New England, where all the trails crossed? I mean, and you know what we could do is if we could introduce that in the historical piece about the nexus and the crossroads of New England, then later at some point when you quantify this, you say, and we were within 70 minutes of 90% of the population of New England, representing 80% of the economic development. I mean, what I'm getting at is the same pitch I used on a deal in Denver. Like we bought a $25 million property outside of Denver, which is like 10 minutes from the airport. It's within like 70% of all living North American people, and it's it's like this great location for your distribution center, right? So I'm wondering if we can.
Hey, George, can you send me a short form of that in an email?
Sure.
Because I can't scribble fast enough to keep up with that.
I
But
don't
some
have all the
version
data,
of that,
but it's something like that.
No, that's
like,
okay.
We're within so many distance. We're an hour to Hartford and all that, but a lot of times you're going to beat people in the head with the opportunity. Say that means that you don't have to go from Boston all the way to Hartford. You're already in Thompson, so it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, well, that would be good under the section on location for sure.
Somewhere, yeah.
And I can find out whatever those, factoids may be.
Right. Okay. I'll let you fill in the blank.
Joe, do you have anything historical about that convergence of, traditional trails? Is that something that exists as a verifiable piece of history?
We have that later in the document. We'll see if it suits our needs.
Okay. All right. So we'll just push that aside for the moment. So anyway, in the historic mills, we're back to talking about them as brownfields. Is it more appropriate here? 6 of those sites have been identified as brownfield properties, blah, 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 blah. Then it identifies the mills. That's where we left off. As brownfields, many of these properties have or are suspected to have contamination from a number of common industrial pollutants. Despite these challenges, brownfield parcels are often suitable for rehabilitation and reuse, and as such, the town considers them key to the plan for economic growth in the next decade. These
I have a
plans and
question.
aspirations would, yep, go.
Is there a reason that the Thomas Mill isn't in that? Is that because we never qualified or did anything to get a Brownsfield grant and just purchased it and did it ourselves? Or was that not a big enough
It was
mill?
not, well, no, it just wasn't identified as a brownfield with contamination on that inventory.
It was, yeah, well,
So-
I don't know how, yeah, it was contaminated when we bought it. It had to be cleaned up, but not like from mill stuff. I think there was oil from what was in there before.
But
I
it's
just didn't
currently
know if that
clean
was-
and not in tax arrears.
Right. Oh, so
Right.
that's,
So-
okay.
Yeah, so there's a couple of ways you can land yourself on the brownfield inventory, and one is to be known to be or suspected to be contaminated, and another to be in tax delinquency and or some combination of those, and that sort of gets it on this list of potential sites for redevelopment for the organizations that look at brownfields.
Okay, just checking.
Including these. So yeah, in this case, I would say the Thomas Mill is not one, but would be appropriate to include in that prior section.
Yes.
So Tara, if brownfields is an economic incentive, why need say brownfields? Because again, it's so off-putting. Maybe you could say there are a number of sites that have economic development funding available based on the nature of their historical involvement in the town, and they're available now. And then let them dig into the brownfields part, because I guess I wouldn't want to lead with brownfield. I just have this thing about, let's lead with the good stuff. When I write stuff to people, I go, yes, you can do the deal, you can make 10 million bucks. Then I get into the details below, and this is all it's going to take. If you start out with cold pricklies, they stop listening. Is my concern. That's my concern. I might be dead wrong.
I guess I'm the kind of person who looks at a sad building the same way I look at a stray cat. I go, oh look. It needs to be rescued.
It's like opportunity,
I like-
a cat that wants a home and they love you. I mean, it's the same. It's all looking at how you look at it, right? I guess I'm looking at it differently, but I just think, some of these
Yeah.
things are, unless it's a statutory thing or you have to disclose it. I'm not saying not to disclose it, but if you want to get them warmed up to this. You say, hey, this is a great place. You've got all these opportunities. There's funding available to help develop these sites. That's wonderful. Let's dig into it.
Yeah,
Let 'em show up.
I made the same marginal note there, George. De-emphasize brownfields,
But-
change
but-
phrasing.
Kira, wouldn't you want to say that we've gotten these grants and have them, and two of these properties have been assessed at some point?
Sure.
I don't know if
Of
it's
course.
here or where, but I don't know where further on that you're going to add stuff about the mill.
Put
Yeah.
it in. Just-
Well, there is a whole section late in the table of contents as I've laid it out, any of which is subject to change, which is specific to brownfield. So maybe that's all it needs for emphasis is a section near the end discussing the potential, which would fit more with George's point.
Right.
I'm not saying not disclose it. Just where do you put it? Do you start with it?
Yeah.
It's a we want to attract people kind of thing. All right. Thanks.
Right. Okay, moving on. The Turtelot buildings, because I have no better way of describing them. In 1907, Dr. Jacob F. Turtelot and his wife Harriet A. Turtelot provided the means to build Thompson's first public high school, as well as a residence for its superintendent. That original high school building remains in use as the administration building for the Thompson Public School System, which shares a campus for all levels, elementary through high school. The administration building also houses a trio of excellent museum rooms featuring art collected by the Turtelots, a collection of railroad memorabilia with a heavy emphasis on the Great East Thompson train wreck, see below, and a reproduction of the interior of Kenny's General Store, which was originally located in the village of Mechanicsville. The original high school is also the home of Riscavage Auditorium, an early 20th century proscenium stage, which retains much of its original character.
Scroll.
Superintendent's residence, yes?
We got to come up with a signal for you to scroll.
Scroll.
Oh, sorry.
So some people might not know who Jacob Turtelot was, but he and his wife were really important people. He was a self-made man. He was a doctor. He founded the CBT, and those things, the Chicago Board of Trade, those things, I think people, no matter who they are, would say, oh, really? These important people came from this town. They must have some, intellectual capital there.
How do you feel about further elaborating on that, Joey Amartino? I think I know the answer to that question.
I can always add more.
Okay.
Just a
I'm going to
hook,
leave that one to. I'm going to leave that one to you.
Because these are cool people. When I came here, I didn't know who they were. I said, wow, these people helped found America. They came from Thompson. The guy that built and finished the Washington Monument came from Thompson. These are important things. The intellectual capital that is derived from this town, the dynamic, the environment created these great people. So anyway, let's be proud of our town.
I like intellectual capital. I'm going to work that
But Joe's
in.
got all the experts. I read it in Joe's website when I first came here 20 years ago. I got his CD, read all the stuff he had. He's got some really good stuff in there. But we've got a great town with really great founders. Let's amplify that.
All right. I'm down.
Okay.
The superintendent's residence, located at 65 Main Street, has been vacant since 2012, having served many functions for the town since its original purpose was rendered obsolete. At this time, plans are being developed to rehabilitate that former residence into an innovative multi-purpose site incorporating a small business center for agricultural and food system entrepreneurs, a single live-work housing unit for a property manager, and a system of public food gardens with an attached playground. More will be discussed regarding this latter project in sections 6, 8, 10, 11, and 17. The Great East Thompson train wreck, the site of a unique historic railroad disaster, the collision of 4 trains on the foggy morning of December 4th, 1891. The location of the wreck is now part of the multi-state airline trail running approximately 80 miles from Portland, Connecticut to Franklin, Massachusetts. The development of this site into a permanent park is a keystone project in the larger plan to capitalize on Thompson's historic sites and outdoor recreation assets as economic drivers.
Maybe,
Further
excuse
details
me,
regarding this. Yep, go.
maybe about the train wreck, wasn't there the song that was written? You could put a little tag in there and that can take them over to that.
Reference song somehow. Okay.
Yeah, just like a
That'll
little,
definitely
like
work. That'll definitely work in the online document for sure.
Yeah, yep.
Kira,
If I could,
I hate to be a Charlie here and say anything about QR codes, but I'm reading a book that has QR codes in it that actually takes me to video that ties in with the book, and I absolutely love it. So I hate to say it, but maybe a QR code.
that's a great idea. Because
Or
everything's
even a
digital,
tag.
no one's going to get the hard copy. Everyone's going to read this online.
Or even like when we're
That's true, George.
referencing,
Yeah.
when we're
Yeah.
referencing the person, Mr. Thompson, Turtle Art, if we can tag them in.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's all like that. Like that, Renee?
Yes, perfect.
Oh,
And
I like it. I like
We
it. Links to Historic Society, etc.
Yes.
We can provide that.
I see Joe speaking, but one of the things that you might want to consider is if you scale back the train wreck, which is like, it's interesting, and I think there'd be a great video connection. And you go back to Samuel Slater, who memorized how to create the machinery, because it was like the big thing. It was patent infringement. He stole it from England, brought it, memorized it, came to Slatersville, built the mills there, then came to Thompson, one of the founders of the economic the revolution in America, came to this town or this area, right, Joe? What part of it? He's in Webster, but he married into the real estate, the farmer's daughter, and developed a number of these mills, didn't he?
Absolutely. He
So
certainly did.
Let's herald the great people that came to this town and created they saw the opportunity then, and there's still another opportunity now. So let's herald it. I mean, the train wreck's kind of cool, but it's sort of like, okay, I would rather reduce that paragraph and give Samuel Slater a couple of more lines saying, hey, look, he was in Rhode Island, he milked that deal, came to Connecticut, the French River, the Quinnebog created a huge economic opportunity, took natural resources and converted, and that opportunity is presented to you today because we've got undervalued assets that can be bought at very competitive prices, and you can make a buck doing it. That's
Even in like with the Nipmunk, that was pretty. I mean, if you want people to know about your town, attach something to get them there, and then they're part of it. They feel like they belong. I mean, I am Nipmunk, so that's probably why I'm a little.
We've got a great town. We have a lot of great people that came here. They came to Thompson for a reason. It was the nexus of New England. It was an opportunity because there was free natural resources. You had rivers, which created, you could turn them into water wheels and, turbines and all the rest of it. But the textile industry in New England, nascent elements that were used to develop this town. So anyway. Yep. It's in there. Joe's got
that's all great
stuff. He
stuff.
has all that stuff in there. He's got all that history. That's important.
We can put hyperlinks in as easily. So instead, where it says Samuel Slater, it can be a hyperlink. You click on it, it'll take you to a spot. So we can help with that, and it doesn't impact your document by adding lots of additional space.
There you go. Yeah.
Yes, that's all brilliant. That's all brilliant. Anybody else have anything else on this section before we move on? Going once, going twice. Sold to demographics. Okay, 1.3, demographics. And a lot of this is going to be kind of dry, but I would be welcome for some ideas on how to undryify it. In addition to the information found in Table A, which I did not forward this time, although I think I did the first time, just trust me that it exists for right now. The data aggregator website, towncharts.com, provides additional demographic information about the population of Thompson, citation below. During the reporting period from 2013 to 2017, the population of Thompson was 94.9% white non-Hispanic. This is in contrast to the state of Connecticut at 68% white non-Hispanic. While both the community and the state have seen an increase in the proportion of the population identifying as non-white since the prior iteration of the PoCD, Thompson's rate of diversification lags significantly behind the state overall, 98 and 87% white, not Hispanic in 2010, respectively.
But it's increasing.
Median age,
Isn't the diversity increasing?
it is, but the
Okay.
statement is that although we're increasing, we're lagging behind the rates of the state in a
I feel like
noticeable
we're shooting
fashion.
ourselves in the foot. Every time you do this, I go, why would I say that to anybody? I said, you know what? It
Well,
was
because some of these
95.10,
things
it's
are,
98 now. It's increased
yeah.
by 5%, and we're making inroads in that area. We're open to diversity, and we're welcoming. If they want to look it up, they can look it up.
Okay.
But why should I go? Let's shoot myself in the head here. I mean, maybe I'm
All
the
right,
wrong
I've got
guy
'em.
for this discussion, but I'm like, okay, that's great.
No, I mean,
they're
it's a
anti.
legitimate point, George.
Yeah, if they're anti, what we're about, then they're going to come here anyway. So forget them. What I don't want to do is shove it up somebody's nose saying, oh yeah, we're lagging behind the rest of the state. Well, no, we're increasing, and we're, I don't know what the trend is, but maybe you get a 5-year trend or a 10-year trend, or what the people on CNN do is they go back like 30 years and say, over the last 30 years, it's increased 30%. Well, it's only 1% per year, but it makes it look good. So maybe pitch something like that, because he's picking 2013, go to 1950 to today. I bet we've gone by 30%. If you want to, again, it's all fact, it's all accurate. But if someone's looking for a reason to come here and say, hey, you know what, they're diverse, they have a diverse group. Anyway.
I like that.
All right. Well, I'm sure you'll have similar comments here, but let's get through it. The median age of all Thompson residents is 44. Don't be sorry. I'm not sorry. Compared with the state average of 41, with the largest age cohort being 45 to 66. This latter category represents one of the two greatest disparities, with the proportions found statewide, 34% versus 29, the other being the relatively low number of individuals aged 15 to 24, 10 versus 14%. The implication is that households in Thompson are aging without being replaced in sufficient numbers by a younger generation in order to maintain population levels. While this does reflect trends seen statewide, the disparity is somewhat greater in Thompson. Declining numbers of children may have negative implications for the viability of the public school system, while a decline in residents of prime working age may have additional negative consequences for the tax base.
Oh boy.
From
We're in trouble with this one.
Do we have to put that in there?
The standard way these things are constructed is to include demographic information. So I would say contextualizing that in terms of challenges is appropriate. I mean, it's not entirely a rah-rah document. It is meant to address our standard challenges, our standing challenges. So I'm open to rephrasing this.
This whole implication piece of this, is that did you take, I know obviously you took the statistics from somewhere, but this implication that households in Thompson are aging, is that something you generated, or you picked this up from somewhere?
No, I mean, I'm just looking at the figures in terms of where we are compared to the state and what we have as a breakdown of relative age demographics. I can take out, rephrase, rewrite, replace anything here. But it is fairly standard in these documents to see the addition of the demographic information. And I would say it is appropriate to address it as a challenge.
I think,
Go ahead, Joe. Go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say, with respect to the school system, I think it's such a serious concern that we have to say it in multiple places to reinforce this point. We have to do a better job of dragging people into this community to keep that school system viable.
Well,
And I'll build on that, Joe, because I'm really tired of people saying that we don't want any more kids here because it'll drive up costs. That is a fallacy that drives me nuts every time I hear it. That only becomes true after you reach a tipping point, and it just makes me crazy.
So, Tira, that's why this, I get it, the declining numbers, add to the negative implications for do we really need to say that in here, or do we turn it around like you just said, that, bringing more younger families into the community will have a positive impact on our public school system instead of
Right, like we'll drive our numbers, you know, higher up or not.
and help
Yeah.
support the tax base instead of, and I don't, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if that's practical or not.
It's a good idea.
No, I got you. So rephrase to be more goal driven.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay. Fair.
there's a couple of people who had made a couple of good, strong statements here. And I think if you flip this, it'll support them.
I think you can also reference back like the housing piece, because a piece of it is also about like having more housing and like younger generation. Like that's sort of like the goal, I would think, of the mill, is to like then bring in those younger families who they move in without a kid and then they stay and move into it, you know? So I think referencing the housing piece in this in connection to the demographics, I think could work.
Is that your dog, Leslie?
Yes, it is.
I don't know his voice by now.
He agrees with Leslie.
Yeah, he's really excited about moving to Thompson.
But
He's singing the song of his people.
Another view of this is to frame it. So as written in Tara, I mean, I can't imagine how hard it is for you because you've crafted this, and now we're sitting there sort of chipping away at it. So there's always pride of authorship. I don't care what anyone says. I know I feel the same way when people go after my stuff. But, you know, I'm wondering if we consider it as a opportunity. Okay, everything here in Thompson is a great opportunity. So what's the opportunity here? The opportunity is that certainly you have a population that's maturing, that however a maturity implies it comes with it a number of things. You have a human capital, a lot of human capital available, right? Because now you've got experiential knowledge as well as, you know, invested knowledge, whether it's skills or academic stuff. So you've got that. So you've got a population that's stable, you know, a more senior population. I just want to get away from the gentrification, you know, population that's gentrified and the housing stock is outdated or something. So I guess, you know, I'm not sure I have the words for it right this moment, but I keep thinking that we flip it. You know, it feels like I take every one of these things and put the best spin on it. And if I'm going to compare,
yeah, I just wrote in the margin.
You know, somehow, I don't know how you.
I just made my marginal note here, George, just so you know, flip the script to opportunity, which I'll use as a guide to rewrite the section.
Yeah, I know. I'm not trying to pick it apart, but I think what happens is we get caught
I want you to
up in the
pick it apart, guys.
Yeah, we get caught up in the data, right? And it's like, okay, here's the data. Here's the data. Put a link. Put a live link. Put under, say, Thompson residents, and have it underscore it, right? And you click it, and it brings you to that statistical, the 2-page, you know, summary of Thompson. If anyone really wants that stuff, but what we want is oftentimes investors, they want to know what we've got, what's available, and they want a good reason to come here. So I want to give them a reason to come here. I'm going to say, hey, look, we've got stable community. The people are more stable. We don't have a bunch of folks that are transients, right? We've got a lot of folks that are stability. We have a community of people that are multi-generational families that are here. We have a stable population. Come and be part of it. That's how George O'Neill would probably pitch it, you know, or something along that line. I have to work out the words, but something like that.
That's okay, guys. You're really going to hate the next section.
Scroll.
That's okay. We're reading it anyway. Oh, sorry. Oh well, it's just cold-eyed. So from 2013 to 20, and I will apply this principle going forward as I rewrite, but I'm just going to read it as written. Yeah. From 2013 to 2017, median household income was 77,000 and change compared to 73 point something for the state, with a reported poverty rate of 5.6% versus 10.1% for the state. In aggregate, these statistics reflect favorably on the town. However, these statistics do not fully reflect on the income disparity between districts within the community. Data drawn from the 2010 census by blah, 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 shows different median household income information when breaking out individual zip codes. And then it goes on to describe Quinnebog.
One thing that stands out right away for me, you got Quinnebog there, and it says senior citizens retirement. So it doesn't really give you, I think, a good picture, right? Because they have a high population of seniors in Quinnebog.
Have to break down by zip code. I mean, I think that's what
I don't think so.
like one of the things that we
He
keep
agrees
talking
with
about
you.
is that, you know, we're one town. As Charlene would say, we are Thompson. You know, does it have to be broken down by zip code?
Yeah, I'll tell you why I did that. And then again, in as far as we want to identify challenges, the problem with doing it for Thompson as a whole in this case, and it's something that I've noticed since I first started thinking about these problems just as a volunteer, is that when you do it for the town as a whole, we appear to be less challenged than we are, which if you were trying to solve your problems, does not give you sort of the cold-eyed, this is really where we need help. And since we know we have fragmentation of the community and that it does break down in some ways around neighborhood or zip code lines, there aren't that many ways I can parse out this data. This was one of the ways I found that was a reasonably reliable source. The problem with it is it's a little behind the date of some of the other data.
And I think what the problem is too, Tira, the zip code for Quinnebog, 06262, that only takes in the people who go to that tiny post office. It doesn't take all the people who get their mail delivered who live in Quinnebog get it through North Grosvenor-Dale. So it doesn't, to me, it means it's not, I don't think it's good.
Is that 500 people?
So,
I mean, is that 500
so
people?
Different data. That's a really tiny zip code.
So it's actually, you know, if you want to look at distribution, you know, that's a skewed value. It's at the tail. It's probably 2 standard deviations from the mean here. So it's way out. It's almost like, well, you know, maybe we don't want to mention it.
I know.
But looking at your numbers.
I know in the past when Teague used to, you know, have to use this for grants and writing, you know, lots of the grants, and they probably still do. I think that the thing that they tended to do was break out the North Grosvenor-Dale and Grosvenor-Dale area to make this comparison. And that, you know, and I don't know where they get their data to do it, but it was not, I don't remember seeing it by village. It was more North Grosvenor-Dale, Grosvenor-Dale area versus the remainder of the town, kind of.
Okay. I'm making a note here to ask Anne where she draws her data.
One thing you look at your $77,000 median income, which is really great. Do we have like a 20-year trend from like, you know, 1990 until present or something, showing the marginal increase over the last 30 years?
I might be able to find that. I probably can.
And who cares about the state? You can throw it in on the side, and we're better. So what we're showing is we have more, you know, increasing affluence. I mean, I see an awful lot of BMWs cruising around town, so somebody's doing okay. It's an unscientific analysis, but a lot of BMs and Audis and a lot of Lexuses too. You know.
Right.
And
where do you live?
I'm over here on Fabian Road here, you know, in Auger Pond. But they're around. They're running around. The sense is, I guess, if we're trying to say, oh, we need your money because we're poor, then I guess you can throw in these 45 versus 70. That shows a standard deviation that's got to be something like, you know, $10,000 or $15,000, which is substantial. But, you know, Quinnebog, I shouldn't say Quinnebog, but Grosvenor-Dale, I can't imagine even how many people that is. That's got to be like, you know, 200 or 300 households in the town, right? Because we've got like 9,200, 200 or 300 people. So that's like 3,000 households. So you're looking at a subset of maybe 20% of the population.
I think we have over 4,000 households in the town.
Oh, really? 4,000? Okay. So you know better than I. So 4,000 with 9,000. So that means we've got like 2 people per house, 2.2 people per household or something. Anyway. Maybe we can make up alternate data sets too. You can say, you know, if we can make one for the master and one for the, if you want to send out, we need money and we're poor, then you can send out that one. But it's, again, so who's my audience?
Yeah.
Who's my audience? And do we have to put the negatives, the less favorable, less complimentary, the less glowing data in this one, which is maybe a larger audience versus, you know, if we're trying to pitch a, you know, HUD funding or HUD, you know, governmental financing, maybe we save that for somebody else, for another report.
Okay, well, okay, so I've got a lot of notes on here to try to rework this. Okay, which I will do.
I mean, 45,000 to 77,000 is like a 30-some odd $1,000 swing. That's a 50% marginal difference. I mean, that's huge. So we've got a lot of variability in the mean.
Well, I mean, that is what I'm trying to illustrate is that, you know, if we take the aggregated data for the whole town, it does not paint the full picture as
Right.
we're assessing challenges.
That's always been the
So,
problem in
Yeah.
going for grants.
Well, you get the
Yeah.
seniors, the population demographic. It's the challenge because you get fixed income is what you've got here, and you don't have as much. But you've got a few folks that are, you know, high end of this. It's a bimodal distribution probably. You've got some really rich folks and a bunch of everybody else, and that sort of gives you a mean value, which is probably you couldn't find anybody with that number. It's like,
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, got it.
All right, I'm going to move on for this section because it needs, I think, a pretty big rewrite. Anybody can feel free to send me anything more fleshed out. I'm going to move on to section 2.1.
Kira, before you move
Yeah.
to 2.1, this is getting really wild. Would be like PoCD 2.0. What if we inserted interviews with citizens into the, like, you know, links to YouTube of interviews with citizens? Like George was talking about, you know, multi-generational, if you had like a family with, like, you know, just a thought. Just put it off on the notes on the side.
That's a great
I
idea.
like that, Leslie.
Great idea.
Maybe if we
Leslie.
actually manage to hire this new social media intern, he loves to interview people if he
I
actually
just think it
responds
would
to us.
be, you know, again, as George was talking about, you know, investors to actually hear a person talking about living, you know, living here, an opportunity here, or somebody like, you know, who has a business here speaking, I think it'd be
And
interactive.
the other spot that I just thought of when she mentioned that is on our Facebook page. There's that little section that people can comment about living, and there are, I really haven't read it in a while, but there are comments
Yeah.
about
Yeah,
what people like about living here.
Yeah, quotes from citizens about living here, or yeah, I think it'd be nice to add a personal touch to it.
And maybe we
Okay,
take
I like that,
advantage of the COVID situation, the fact that 25% of all new building starts are outside of large MSAs, right? Outside of large metropolitan sample areas. And that means that the cities are not growing in the last 6 months. All the growth is outside of the cities because guess what? Everyone's discovered they can work remote. Like I've been working for the last few years. And I can get a salary from Boston, but be in Thompson, pay Thompson taxes. My commute is 13 steps from my living space to my office. So maybe that's a hook that, you know, a lot of cities don't have. Maybe we can sort of, I don't know where you put that, but maybe that's an angle too. That sort of ties into what Leslie was saying, and also, you know, sort of leverages some of the other fundamentals because we have 37 square miles and 9,200 square people. That's 250 people per square mile. This isn't downtown Boston. We have high-speed internet connections. You can get, you know, 100 megabytes a second for almost nothing out here. And if you want to push it, you can go 200 or 300 megabytes, and you can do everything you need. So that's a real plus. Those are real strengths. You're only a mile, or you know, you're an hour to all the major New England business centers. So you have to do business. You can be there. You can be at the major airports, whether it's Providence or Hartford or Boston, within an hour and a half, no matter what. And then you can fly to the rest of the world. Anyway, sorry about that. But that's what that is.
Don't stop apologizing.
But that's how I think about towns. This is a great place to live. So let's share. Let's not keep it a secret.
All right, well, again, you're probably going to hate the next few sections because they all talk about challenges. But Renee, I'm particularly looking for some input on you on this one, 2.1, Board of Selectmen. Under the governance section, as is common in New England, Thompson is governed by a Board of Selectmen with an annual town meeting. The Thompson Board of Selectmen is made up of 3 members, and the first selectman is the full-time CEO of the town. Selectmen serve 2-year terms, and the terms are not staggered, so the entire board comes up for election in every municipal cycle. It has occasionally been noted that replacing the full board in each election cycle creates challenges to continuity, and that therefore it may be prudent to extend and stagger terms of office. To date, there has been no substantive exploration of such possible changes.
So
Thompson has 4 voting districts, so described. The possibility of consolidating one or more of the districts has occasionally been raised, with the stated goals of building more unity between the residents of the districts, as well as reducing election costs and the number of poll workers required. Such consolidation has not yet been put to a vote within the community, but when discussing the idea informally, the limited feedback that has been received has not been favorable to such a change. Residents appear to value the familiarity and convenience of voting in their accustomed districts, and so consolidation has not been aggressively pursued. Table
In
B,
other
which
words,
I
there's
have.
no selectmen that have been brave enough to put it out there. That's what it is.
Well,
Amen.
I-
Amen.
Amen.
I could phrase it that way.
Yeah, go ahead. I want it just like that.
It really hasn't been put to the test. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
why I don't want it to. I mean, you're making it sound like it's not favorable, and we don't really know that, Tara. It's not. It's.
Do you want to posit that more strongly as a goal? I would be perfectly happy to set that as a potential goal in the next 10-year period. That is part of what this document is supposed to do.
Well, absolutely. I think it should be a goal in the next 10 years. I don't think it's something that
You
we're going
also-
to do in the next few years because the state probably wouldn't let us.
Why don't
They're
you
not
also
letting-
reference like what other towns this size, how many districts do they have?
We have a study that Steve Herbert did comparing to other towns, similar size. It's quite, and
Put the link to that. Put the link to that right in there.
Yeah, west of the Mississippi, they vote by mail, even before COVID.
right.
Yeah.
I just this
So
whole
do you have
appear-
that report as an online document, or is just a hard copy document?
Yeah, I do
Renee?
have it on. I do have it. Yes, online. But this whole residents appear to value the film. I mean, where's that coming from? I mean, you've talked to people.
That's just anecdotal from the few casual conversations I've had. That's why this stuff is all subject to editing.
I
This is
don't
just
think that.
material to put in for conversation.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't like
Yeah,
it.
I would just put in the facts of just like,
Yeah,
what hasn't been
this is
pursued.
what it is. We have 4 polls, and we can link to that chart, that study that says if we,
A study.
So
yeah,
here's an
study-
idea. We could create a poll to link this to.
There you go. Let's create data to go with this thing. And I echo Renee's point and some of Leslie's points that I guess, I come from a different world. I'm from the happy side of the house. So I'd probably recast the same data in a different view and say, you know what, we've had a selectman and, representative format for whatever number of years, and it worked well, and we're open to evolving, and we look forward to that opportunity. I mean, I feel like, we shoot myself in the foot again here. I was like, let's tell them what we don't like. Let's talk about the good parts about it. You have one executive you can talk to. You've got people that are from the community that know the community, that are taken, no matter what party they're from, but wherever they come from, they care about Thompson, and that's really important. That's part of the fabric of New England. That's what makes New England unique. I'm sure Joe's got plenty of factual breakdowns. That's part of the tradition of New England, going back to the 1600s when this whole area was settled. And we preserve that character, the people. And you can come into our town and be part of that. You have a voice. You can walk right into Amy's office and say, "Hey, Amy, what's going on?" And she'll sit and talk to you. We don't have a bunch of bureaucracy, but anyway, that's another
Yeah.
view
So
on it.
I'm just going to state that there are 2 equally worthy, but slightly conflicting purposes to this document, and
Right.
one is exactly that, the rah-rah, and the second is the identification of genuine challenges. So to some extent, the more we go out of our way to be
Good.
rah, rah.
effusively optimistic, the more it can dilute the identification of the challenges, which is not to say that any of George's points are invalid or any of mine are more valid. Neither of those things is true. It's to say that there is a path that's going to have to be threaded between this.
Yeah.
Because the more we portray ourselves as being nothing but the land of opportunity, the harder it is going to be to sit down and say, we have seen that this is a problem and we've got to fix it, because that is part of what this 10-year plan is supposed to do.
Sure.
I know, but with the 10, who's talking?
Go ahead, Charlene.
With the 10-year plan, and I kind of feel like we know what the problems are because we're in it. And so we should be fixing problems, not writing them in a book. I don't want everyone to know what's going on. And then 10 years, we look back and we still got the same problems. Like, I'm not so naive that we write like a fairy tale Cinderella book, but in reality, people always have problems and towns are always going to have problems. So let's work on fixing the problems outside of the book and, go from there.
Here, I'll take a stab at this section at another, like outside the meeting, if that's okay.
I would love that. I would love it. So we want to move on from this?
Just put them down as opportunities for improvement, I guess is how I'd try. There's always, you can take a look at everyone looks at these things, right? And you see this, oh my gosh, this is a terrible problem. Well, it is, but it's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity to improve. It's an opportunity to take our strengths and amplify them and project them. And that's where I guess I come from, so sorry.
I'm with you, except the opportunity improvement is opportunity for cost improvement or cost control. That's the opportunity I want to see larger. So right there it says reducing election costs and the number of poll workers required. And I don't want to see my mother-in-law out of a job. But the point is that to me is a big element here. We need to be very aggressive in finding those opportunities for cost reduction.
Right.
Okay.
And increasing the tax base will increase the opportunity because we'll have a greater grand list and we'll have more revenue and we'll have more flexibility and more opportunities to improve.
Does everybody like the idea of linking to a simple 1 or 2 question poll? Even maybe as many as 4 or 5 questions, although it's such a simple topic in a way, to link to in that document to grab the data?
It's good for me.
Let's get the results first and then decide if we want to link it.
Well, that's what I'm suggesting is having the poll, the gathering of the data be in the document.
Sure, I think it's great to do that. I mean, we need to leverage the technology, and I bet you 95% of the people won't read a hard copy. They're going to read a PDF. You want live links and and all that stuff that goes with it.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. I'm just going to say that people aren't going to get to the section that far into this document to take that poll. If we're serious about doing that, we probably should maybe we can leave it here too, but we should do an outside poll.
I thought we were going to do the poll and give them the results. I mean, you're going to ask the people in Thompson to do the poll, then give them an access to the results. You're not going to do a poll of readers from the outside, are you?
The problem with that, George, as you know, is response to polls. If it's just online, you've got a whole older population, maturing population that will not have the opportunity to weigh in. So that it's a tough thing to do unless you're going to add it as a question.
Leslie put the craft the questions. I mean, it's like anything else. I know some friends that do this polling for the government and the elections and the Democrats and stuff, the Republicans, and they craft the questions just for their clients. So I think there's a way of doing it, but I take your point. So I don't think we should have the reader come up with the poll. The poll should be, we should get the results and decide if we want to use them or not. Then have a link to the poll, link to the results,
right? And
have them curated or have them properly, vetted material. So remove the outliers, because there's always, if you're a teacher, I'm sure some of you have been teachers at one point in time. They have to give out surveys these days, and at least in colleges. And when I was teaching, they'd give out these surveys, and 80% of the students say, "Oh, it's great." And 5% says, "You're the best teacher ever." And that other 5% you'll never forget because it wasn't good. But there's always somebody that doesn't like what you have to say. And you don't want them to skew the 95% that thought it was good or great. So anyway, point taken.
All right, so this next section, because this is we're out of my territory. This is, again, very dry, just facts I could easily compile. I was hoping to get some stuff from Orla. I would love it if somebody else would take this to flesh it out. I don't have anybody from the Board of Finance on this working group. Nobody replied to my request to join.
Tara, I have a few, I can find the state statute that governs the Board of Finance that tells them what they're actually, I mean, I think you've covered it pretty good, but I can find that statute and we can go from there and have Orla review it if you want.
Okay, that works for me.
The Finance Board is their duties are pretty spelled out in the state statutes.
Yep. I mean, to me, the really relevant piece here, other than the table, which Orla said that she will give me, that just shows the comparative budget information, is the stuff about the budget referenda, because again, we're getting into that, the challenges that we're trying to identify, and this is coming up under a challenge to governance here. So this is the data that you compiled, Renee. It's an average of 2 referenda to pass a budget, and identifying the difficulties that creates for us. I tried to be as plain about this as I could, but again, I'd love some better input on this.
Just so that the group knows where this came from. Joe Lindley actually requested that I do some sort of database and come up with voting results, turnout, that kind of thing on budgets. So Tara pulled this from a spreadsheet that I created for him that he didn't get to see.
Poor Joe.
Didn't the grand list, didn't the tax base increase based on the valuations over the last year or two?
We just had yes.
So it's going to look, the numbers are going to look good, right? The rate went down relative to the tax, to the.
Well, this is this year's mill rate up here. This is as it was set for fiscal 21. So that is factual.
Do we want to? Well, I don't know if you want to, because you could. It's not showing the previous year, right, on the mill rate.
I can. I mean, that's just a matter of pulling.
How's it going to look? I guess is the question.
Actually, I can't. I think did it go up? No, it didn't go down as much as people thought it should after a reval. I think that was the big gripe. It went down some, but not to the degree that people thought. I'd have to pull that information out.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to do in this is, in a roundabout way, come to this point, which is everybody focuses on simple things like the mill rate or the assessment values or this, that, or the other thing. The mill rate is tied directly to things like housing density and grand list. Right, so the idea that, for example, housing density is our enemy is demonstrably false when you compare that to people who don't ever want their taxes to go up for the services provided. If the services are going to remain sustainable, then either inflation has to go away forever, or taxation rates have to go up. So that, and the mill rate, the tax rates, as individual numbers aren't that meaningless, because the assessors and the Board of Finance actually determine what the needs are, and then they amortize it for the community. So if you're not thinking about that as amortization, if you're only thinking about your individual rate, you're thinking about it the wrong way. So this is a very roundabout way just to sort of try to illustrate these things without judgment. I don't know a better way to do this because finance is not my area, right? So that's why I'm saying if anybody else wants to take a go at this to make this more useful than a set of flat facts, please take it from me.
This may be the area where you just put the numbers out and it is what it is, because as you point out, there's not a lot of folks that can really I'm not saying they don't understand, but they really don't feel the dynamics that go with it. So you just post it, say, here, here's the rate. What does that mean? Maybe translate it, make it simple, make it everyday person. Like, so the average house pays X dollars in taxes, right? Or the average house value is X, and the taxes on that are Y or something. Make it simple, and then leave it at that. But I mean, if you're looking at a town, you're going to say, what's my tax rate? I mean, my wife and I were looking at a second home somewhere, and we're looking at, okay, what's the tax base? What's the demographic? What's their trend? What's the services? What's the grand list look like? And that's what, what's my carry cost? Because it comes down to valuation. If I'm going to put $250,000 or $500,000 on a property, so what's that going to cost me? And what's my insurance and stuff? And what's the valuation? And what's the trend over time? And is that going to appreciate or depreciate? And what's my risk? It all goes into the calculus of investment. So I don't know if there's an easy way to do it either. It's just, it is what it is. But maybe Marla she's the finance person.
Orla,
you mean?
Orla, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Orla. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I invited Orla to contribute, but
Orla, I meant Orla.
Tira,
Yes.
your last sentence here. So some strategies have been suggested to increase public understanding of the budget process, which will be further discussed. And so are we just trying to create a picture of what is in this section?
Yeah.
So then all you're going to do is you're not going to put this whole thing in there. I wouldn't. Difficulty in passing a budget on the first pass, blah, 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 blah. Why would you? I would put the facts on average, blah, 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 blah. And people can, decipher that for themselves. Though there are some factors in there, because on some of these budget referenda, there was an extra question. And we always, 99% of the time when there's an extra question, they fail. So that year, we're probably going to have 5. So, I mean, I don't know if you want to get into that detail, but I would just put those facts and then get into, we understand that we need to increase the public understanding, and these are the ways we want to do it.
It's not unique to Thompson either. It's all the towns in, most major communities are dealing with the challenge of declining population and, costs and school costs and all that. That's why you had referendums.
I just think that whole just blah, blah, blah. I just don't think we need it. I think we know, this tells us, okay, so on average it takes 2, some years it takes 5. Ooh, okay, that seems to be a little problematic. And then the next section where we're going to deal with the problem, I mean, your sentence there is perfect, and we can go into examples of what we will try to do to make that happen.
Okay.
So along this line, and consistent with my earlier theme, when I was graduating from college back, 40 years ago or something, 45 years ago, I went to a friend of ours who was a really great, as a developer. He'd done a lot of things. He's had a lot of entrepreneurial activities. And I said, just like the graduate class, the graduate movie, I said, so what do I need to know? I'm just graduating, fresh with my degree, and I expected him to say plastics. And he said, George, what you need to know is this, and I'm going to share this with you guys. It's like, remember, you've got tons of facts and figures, and those are important, and you can't overlook them. But the average person, when they go out to dinner, what they want to know is the great setting, the smell of the mushrooms, the great wine, the great atmosphere, and the background lighting. They don't want to hear about how you cut the steak, that the poor cow it came from, and how it was butchered. They don't want to hear all that. They don't want the gory details. All they want is the image. They want to smell the mushrooms, and they want to smell that experience. So when you're taking that concept as a proxy to this, we want to say, hey, here's where we're at. This is where we're going. Here's the opportunity, and and take it from there. So, and how you frame it is, these are all facts. Nobody's going to dispute, and they can be someone can look them up. You can go look those up. Those are ascertainable, determinable facts. But the reality is that we want to sell, or I shouldn't say sell, but I'm going to say sell, is that we want to portray our town in the most favorable light and factually, and we don't want to certainly double down on the negatives, because I guarantee you the other towns aren't probably going to do that. But we want to, be factual, be truthful. We don't want to ever not want to mislead. But we don't have to overdo it on the drama behind the 2009, 2010, 2012, 2013, and 2018, you know, ballots and how maybe the trend is in the, it takes more assessment by the population or by the voting public to come up with an agreement. That could be due to so many factors. There's so many things that we can editorialize on this, saying, well, why did it take so long? What caused it? What are the underlying factors? But, you know, the average person looking at this is going to say, our tax rate is, you know, 27 point whatever, and that's my carry cost.
I will work on the budget and finance section. Scrolling. All right, Renee and Charlene, I'm really looking for you guys on this, and I shall read. Again, this is all phrased in the way I look at things, which is clearly much more cold-eyed than people are liking. So I'm looking for a lot from you, especially the two of you here. One of the persistent obstacles to a truly representative system of governance is the lack of engagement by residents with the processes of their local government. Thompson is hardly unique in its reliance on a scant minority of its most involved community members to run for office, serve on volunteer boards and commissions, and drive the public dialogue, as seen on Table B, which goes back to an earlier. On average, only a third of Thompson's eligible voters participate in municipal elections. If this trend persists, a worsening disconnect between local government and the priorities of residents would seem inevitable. Although government provides many important services, such as schools, assistance for veterans, child care, and library services, which are often taken for granted, many citizens have a limited understanding of the connection between their tax dollars and benefits to the community. To some extent, until recently in Thompson, this lack of full awareness was compounded by inadequate online resources. Since 2017, a concentrated effort has been made to improve functionality and navigability of the municipal website. That effort continues as the town pursues online permitting systems to increase ease of use and transparency for applicants. Additional progress has been made in accelerating the town's use of social media platforms, which enables a more real-time method of communication with residents.
Scroll.
The increase. What, Charlene?
Scroll.
Oh, scroll. Oh, there we go. Scroll a little further. The increased use of social media was made possible in part by the decision of the Economic Development Commission to fund a new position, the social media intern. Although only providing 10 to 12 hours per week of support, the return to the town in time saved for the full-time staff with a small investment in wages has been significant. Following the first successful year of the internship, the decision has been made to carry the position into a second year. It is hoped that the internship will provide increased value as the position evolves over the long term.
All right, stop.
Yep.
So I kind of feel like while some of the information is accurate and truth-telling,
Can you
now,
scroll back
do you know
up?
what I mean? I feel, yeah, go back up. I feel like it is kind of on the negative side, that first, like, kind of what people were saying, like, you really need to kind of, I mean, we don't have to talk about what we aren't doing. How about because this is a new 2020. Let's talk about where we're at right now and then go forward with it. Do you know what I'm saying? And so, like, when you say, or the book says whatever, that, did you go all the way up to the top?
I think she's got to go up one more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the persistent obstacles to a truly representative system of our government is the lack of engagement. That's true, but I don't think that's a Thompson problem. I think that's a world problem. And so no one needs to be told that there's a lack of, engagement.
What she could say at that point, though, Charlene, is in an effort to increase citizen engagement,
We
the town
have
has blah, blah, blah,
Yes.
blah, blah, blah,
yes,
blah.
yeah, like that. Like there, it's all true. Everything's in there, but I think it needs a different spin.
I got you.
Like not a negative nanny, but a persistent Paula. Persistent Paula, like
Oh, goodness. I'll have to tell Paula that.
Okay, so again, going back to tone and emphasis. All right, so let's go back down. I mean, unless you've got more here other than phrasing.
Look at those statistics for your municipal elections too. Curious.
What about them?
The statistics on municipal elections.
I can forward the table to everybody tomorrow. I could have forwarded it to this, but I sent so many attachments, I just left the tables out. But I've got it. Noting to myself, forward table.
Though the participant in municipal elections is higher than it is in referenda by a long shot.
I don't think you sent me the, oh, does that have the numerical, the spreadsheet that you sent me for the referenda? I was just looking at the numbers it took at that time. It probably does, huh?
Yes, I think I have percentage of turnout, no?
Yeah, you know, you probably do. I'm making another marginal note here to myself to look.
But it doesn't include municipal
Or
elections. That
turnout
data was just
data.
referenda. Data.
Yeah, the the election stuff I got from Eileen.
Okay.
Where was I? All right. Do we have anything else on the first couple of paragraphs here?
No, just tweak some of the negativity and then the commission to fund a new position, the social media intern, while only providing, not although only providing 10 to 12 hours, you know what I mean?
Right.
While only providing 10 to 12 hours per week of support, the return to the town and the time saved for the full-time staff for the small investment in wages has been significant. Like it's kind of.
Or you could say, building on our efforts in the past, we've added to our strengths in the form of X.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all. You know, just sort of like, it's all accurate, it's all truthful, but you know, it's like, this is a great town. We've done a lot of good stuff and we're building on that. And we're all here because we care. So that's, you know.
We might
Can I just tell you that I am.
We might want to have everybody read this, and they might love that they're living in Thompson.
Well, there is that.
Do it
Can I just let you guys know that when I am coached in sports, I am one of those people who responds really strongly to highly critical negative coaching, the coaching that everybody else hates. Yeah, everybody else hates that. I eat that with a spoon.
Oh gosh, I hate being criticized. So I don't know how you can handle it, Tara. You have kudos. You get A+ for this because I couldn't do it. I fall apart.
I think
defending myself while
you're
all
very
through it.
forward. The wording is forward, and that I like that, but it has to have a little softer edges. Like it can't be so.
Or I was thinking about this. You know what? I think it's a stroke of brilliance because Tara went in and sort of laid us bare, and now we're saying no, we're better than that. She forced us to come up with this dynamic dialogue, right? I think the strategy that Tara has come up with is brilliant, and I think she's sitting there going, I got what I wanted. Truly, I'm serious. Whether you know it's so call it serendipity, but the reality is the outcome is the same, and it's all your credit. So keep it up.
Oh, I appreciate the effusive praise, George.
No, truly. I mean, it's just,
I do also respond to positive coaching, but
okay.
It's okay if you guys want to beat me up too.
I give you some.
Yeah, enough of that. Moving on.
Go.
Since the formation of the EDC Branding Implementation Subcommittee, additional efforts have been made to increase civic engagement by soliciting direct feedback. Starting in February of 2019, I described the events, boards and commissions, the green and growing, the community game events, the Ask Me Anything were encouraged.
Yeah.
All of these events were well received, and the organizers hope to plan similar events in the future. Future results of the visioning exercises mentioned above will be described. I mean, I think this is pretty straightforward. I don't think there's much to do here.
No, that's good.
Yeah, okay.
Of course, despite these positive developments.
Yeah, I'm telling you, because this is how I respond to coaching. I'll read it, and then you tell me how you want to fix it. Despite these positive developments, many of the challenges to citizen engagement persist. Public cynicism towards governance is increasingly visible and audible, often by means of the same social and traditional media platforms that also serve to inform. It is well documented that misinformation, whether intentional or inadvertent in its origin, spreads more rapidly than plain fact. Knowing that this is a result of misinformation reinforcing pre-existing bias allows understanding of that spread, but it does not mitigate its corrosive effects. In section 3.4, challenges to governance, specific deficits will be identified and goals will be established to increase constructive citizen participation.
Oh, wow.
All right, how do you want me to flip it?
While these positive get rid of despite. While with these positive developments, many of the challenges to citizen engagement persist. Right?
Yeah, okay, so just,
Public cynicism
yeah, I got you.
towards government is increasingly visible and audible. And then you can talk about it down the challenges. Like that's where you could be a little bit more like wordage and right to the point, because now I'm in there. Now you're going to tell me of the challenges that are in there. But while you're talking about Thompson and introducing me to it, then don't tell me it's problems till I'm closer to the end of the book.
All right, I'm going to skip Jonathan's letter because it's really just, the only thing I would say is, you know, I thought it would be nice to include this, to reinforce that we had, you know, that this was a new thing, that this was a kid who worked for us and actually had valuable things to say. Also, he pulled these charts. I am somewhat neutral on actually including it if people don't think it's actually valuable. I kind of like it, but
So
Well, I
you're
think
On
it
your
would-
video, use your video link. So have them read it. Have an interview. Have a little video thing where you go to a
well, he's
YouTube
already
video.
gone.
Well, yeah, but you can pull him in through Zoom and say, hey, we're going to video you. We're going to put you on our thing. We're going to put a link. You put it out on YouTube, and you can build it into the document. So he's memorialized. He's captured forever, and you can take the positive points, all those great things, without taking up a lot of text. And those that
Right,
want to
and
That's actually a good idea, George. Renee, you can get in touch with Jonathan, yeah?
We'll see. He's, what's today? I think he leaves tomorrow.
Yeah, but
He's
the
going
magic
to
of the
school
internet, we can
tomorrow.
always pull them up. And what intern doesn't want to?
I can
use it
have him
for-
he could actually he could do the video
There
and
you
post
go.
it to the town's YouTube because he has access still.
There you go. There you go. Yeah.
So once he gets settled though, you know what I mean? We got to give him some
Yeah.
time to get settled in his first year of college.
Yeah, well, this document doesn't have to be done till December, so he can
Yeah.
take a little time.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to skip the actual text and the figures, partly in the
scroll
interest
then.
of time. Yeah,
That way we
I'm
don't lose
turning
anything.
pages
And also, if he reads it and it comes across in his own words, it'd be far more effective and compelling.
Okay, so here is where we start to get into some of the challenges and action items. And I don't know if this is not enough in here, too much, but you guys tell me. In the prior iteration of the PoCD, a number of issues were identified with goals and action steps established to mitigate those challenges. The greatest challenges at that time were felt to be poor awareness of the complexity of town government, low resident confidence in local government, and low citizen participation in all aspects of town governance. The action steps established in that prior document were to create access to government through a preference to, and I left his bad grammar in there, evening meeting hours for boards and commission and public notice to vacancies to boards and commissions. To create greater transparency in government through publications such as the quarterly Selectmen's Report, the annual town report, and legal notices placed in effective locations, and to create a pamphlet describing government functions and procedures for citizens. The town did take these actions, but despite any incremental improvement, the challenges of low resident awareness, confidence, and participation remain. To a great extent, these deficits in participation are not unique to Thompson, but reflect trends in the larger society. Much has been written about fragmentation of civil society due to factors as varied as political tribalism, lack of civics education in the public schools, abundant distractions in social media, etc. This document will not attempt to spill more ink exploring the foundational causes of low citizen engagement at the local level. However, it is our responsibility to posit more robust methods to boost confidence in local governance in order to strengthen the connection between the people of Thompson and those elected and employed to serve them. Suggested action steps, and I'm open to others. These are just the ones I came up with off the top of my head. Refine the municipal website for greater ease of navigation, reduce the number of clicks required to find important information and documents, add online platforms for permit applications and payment options, adjust the interface to be more visual and less text heavy. Increase the frequency of online communication to residents by local government via regular emails sent to web subscribers and frequent updates to the website and official social media pages. The latter will be the primary responsibility of the social media intern.
So that's,
Expand communications.
Wait,
go ahead, Shirley.
are these things that we've already started doing, or these are things, should it say suggested action steps taken? Because it sounds like some of this stuff we're already doing.
Well, I would respond to that by saying we have started doing some of these things, but I would say that their progress or lack thereof merits mentioning them as action items. And just at the end of this, I'm going to encapsulate whatever we come up with as actual suggested action steps and put them into that 10-year plan format. So some of these, and I would say some of these in particular, may be shorter term lists
So bullet,
in which we've already made some progress.
right. So bullet 2,
Yep.
I think that has to, one of the goals, the action step would be to increase departmental use. Let's face it, our social media cannot cover every department and should not be made to. He or she will post for every department or any department. I think the real issue with the social media is that our departments aren't on board. When's the last time?
And that echoes exactly what John said in his letter. So that's legit, Renee, for sure.
So I think that number 2 has to be tweaked a little bit.
Yep,
I keep
I've got
wondering
the note here.
if this has changed since the last 6 months, because looking at the turnout for meetings on whatever meeting I attend, whether all of which have been Zoom, but if you look at the Inland Wetlands Commission, for example, typically on the last 3 years, 2 or 3 years, we've had like 5 people or 7 people show up. We have 30 and 40 people showing up for
That's Zoom
meetings,
George.
and
That's
I'm not
Zoom.
unique. That's Zoom, but what I'm getting at is it's civic involvement, right? So that's an opportunity. We are going to. I don't think we should abandon this media. We should just incorporate it, right, going forward. Saying, look, hey, it's going to be in present. If you want to be at the meeting at the town hall, great. However, it's also available on Zoom, and we're going to have a moderator. So, if you can't show up, you can't hop up and drive to the town hall. You can just dial in or link up or
Yeah,
plug
I
in.
think actually Amy has actually taken steps to make that possible going forward when we're meeting in person. I think she's working with the school to figure that out for us.
But this is a
Right.
paradigm shift.
That is in there. That is in there as an action step. Are you
Okay.
suggesting that should be emphasized more? I just kind of tagged it at the end.
Yeah,
But these were in no
I'd leave
particular order.
I'd leave with the winnings. One of the things I learned over the last 40 or 50 years is that I'm going to lead with the good stuff. And this has been a good thing. I mean, there's a lot of terrible things here, but this medium has changed fundamentally how business is conducted and how people communicate. And I think it's in many ways to the better. I'm not saying it's going to supplant our historical ways of doing business, because you can't just remove, human face-to-face communication, but this makes it more inclusive. It expands it. And let's not discount that. And I think a lot of things they won't be the same. It's just
I'm right there with you on this, George, as everybody here knows.
Yeah, so
I
remember a lot of things
very
changed.
pro Zoom.
Fundamentally, you need a major change. Like, for example, in 1981 in New York City, there was a subway strike for like 3 weeks, and everybody had to walk to work. And guess what? Something changed. Everyone wore sneakers. And from that day forward, people wore sneakers to the office, and they changed their shoes when they got there. And it became de rigueur for everywhere throughout the United States and throughout the world. They wore sneakers, of course. Why would you walk in the subway with high heels or with regular shoes? And that's what they did. So this COVID thing forced us to go online and use Zoom, and we're going to use it as part of as integrated as part of what we do. It's not going to be, oh yeah, let's use Zoom. No, where's the Zoom piece? So
George,
Renee, you can tell him why you're laughing.
George, you haven't seen Tara walk to work yet.
Uh-oh, does she wear sneakers?
Oh, absolutely not.
Oh, well, anyway, it's everyone's principle. But I remember remembering that all of a sudden, why are people wearing sneakers? And I'll tell you what, I remember going to my office in Boston, and my staff would show up, and I say, "Oh, you got sneakers on?" And they kept their shoes on. They had like 3 sets of shoes, or whatever they wore in the office shoes they had under their desk. But this is the same kind of thing. So yeah,
we get the paradigm shift. So
Yeah.
I'll move that up because that's
Move it up.
sort of an immediate front of mind thing. All right,
I
expand
like-
communications to
make it positive.
Who was it?
This is Leslie. I just like what George said about like it creating like an inclusive and active, I think putting that somewhere in Zoom, although, this is listing goals. I think when you add those words, it shows like why it's important,
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point, Les.
an active participation and inclusiveness of the medium.
Yeah,
And jump on
I like that.
his idea of moving something we're doing that's successful to
Yeah.
the top. I would do that. I would reorder these so that's the case for everything. If there's any that are, we want to do something like the Citizens Academy, that's a goal that should be lower on the list. If there's something,
Okay.
yeah, that's all. I'm looking at it. That's all.
No, that's good input. I would say, therefore, although I consider it a high priority one, is that the budgeting tool. I think that's a little more aspirational. The public feedback events we've done, we can move that up maybe.
Yeah.
Public school system, I would actually move well down just because we have no real control there. That's, again, aspirational.
Right.
And then move the Zoom thing up. Anybody have any other suggestions for this list?
Can you, I forget what the list's for.
Long list.
Action steps for what?
I have a hard time remembering more
Action-
than 5 things,
Action steps
I'm old.
to
I'm a real
resolve
old guy,
challenges to
5
governance.
times, 5 things.
Leslie, what are the 5 things? Leslie remembers.
What?
Okay.
Sorry, I'm doing my dishes. What's up? What?
Never mind. That's
The 5 things of what?
that you can remember. Let's not go there.
I said I had a hard time remembering more than 5 things. You get 8 or 10 things, forget it. Just give me the top 3 or 4 or 5 at the most. Most people, in my experience, cannot manage more than 3 or 4 things. 5 at the outside. Okay, so when you put in key performance indicators, we have to say these are the top 3 or 4 things or 5 things that we are keeping an eye on. When we come up with aspirational goals, here's the top 5 things. You can list more, but no one's gonna. I mean, I don't. Who cares? Who cares after 5? I mean, nobody cares.
What?
10-year plan. It's a 10-year plan.
What?
Okay, 10 years. Okay.
After
5 years for
5,
each
we've
year.
accomplished something.
I'm
Why don't
sorry.
you break them down? Why don't you break them down into like top priority, and then list 2 or 3, and then like medium priority, and then
There
like,
you go.
like
You can
that
bite,
works.
good point. Good bite-sized pieces. Take that elephant and chop them in chunks.
so then when we look back on it, and it's like, well, we got the top priority things done, but we didn't get to like, the bottom of the lower.
Do you do that later with short term, longer term?
That's what I was planning on doing as the very last section, which is that 10-year plan. So,
Okay.
but I can break that down into the sections as well. And the last one's really like an appendix with the whole thing laid out. I think that's fine. Yeah, okay. I think that's good.
You want to tell them what you're going to tell them and tell them what you told them. So they're going to be reading this stuff. If somebody actually reads this, they're going to come away with something. They're gonna say, what was that town? That, that's a great town. It had some great people. They've got great opportunities. They've got great resources. And like every town, there's challenges, but we know that. But these people really want to do it. And that's my hook.
All right, we're going to go on to Public Works. Dennis, you're up.
Okay.
Okay. So this is, Dennis provided some feedback into the garbage draft that I came up with, which was, a lot of plain fact, but some not quite editorializing, but drawing of conclusions on my part as well. So some of this flat out, Thompson encompasses 95.97 miles of improved roads, 2.08 miles of unimproved roads. The Thompson Public Works Department handles all aspects of road maintenance, including mowing, sweeping, drainage, yada, yada, yada. That's plain fact. Transfer station also operated by the Public Works Department. Brief synopsis. So here's some of the stuff that Dennis contributed to my skeleton stuff. The town of Thompson is a permittee under the general permit for the discharge of stormwater from small municipal separate storm sewer systems, MS4 general permit. The MS4 is an unfunded mandate by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, as a part of its stormwater phase 2 rules in 1999. The EPA requires the state and the states
In turn, requires.
Oh, no, that is supposed to be, no, it is supposed to be two plurals. I see.
Yeah,
The EPA required the states, comma, and the states in turn required certain towns, of which Thompson is one, to take various actions regarding stormwater. In the first phase, the town had to register for the general permit, develop a stormwater management plan, and map all the outfalls in the town. In the second phase, the town was required to map and inspect all catch basins connected to those outfalls within the priority areas. While well-intended, this unfunded mandate has cost the town many thousands of dollars and produced little results to date. The ultimate goal is to prioritize certain outfalls to be tested. In larger cities, this may be a valid procedure, but in small towns such as Thompson, the goal could be accomplished with much less bureaucracy. To date, very little pollution has been discovered in any of the outfalls checked. More regarding the MS4 permit will be discussed in section 4.7, challenges to infrastructure and maintenance.
Scroll up.
Public Works project.
So when you go back to that paragraph, I guess where I would write it would be something like, Thompson's made a great investment for the future. And although we haven't seen great returns yet, we're hopeful that it will produce some, period.
Yeah, it comes off like a little bit of a I mean, it's true. I bet it's true. I'm just saying it's
all accurate.
The unfunded mandate, I don't know. Do we need to elaborate that in here or?
An unfunded mandate that we actually embraced shows our commitment to the environment. It shows our commitment to the infrastructure. So I guess it's a positive. So I'm trying to put it in a positive frame.
But I'm hearing Dennis's point on this, so
yeah, I know. It
hasn't been beneficial.
How do we get rid of it?
Yeah, so Dennis, I had sent you the question, so the statement is made that the goal could be accomplished with less bureaucracy. I am wondering if you could posit solutions or, alternate processes that we could articulate.
Well, this section was kind of just intended as kind of background, probably more detailed than I guess it needed to be. But the goal was to prevent stormwater pollution, and unfortunately we got lumped in with towns like Hartford and Bridgeport, and the huge towns where they have a lot of stormwater pollution, and this was a valid exercise for them to locate it with ultimate. The ultimate goal is to sample these areas and try to eliminate it. So, it certainly could put there are good things that came out of it. We do have a map of the system now. If you go with the positive spin approach, we could certainly say that the good things that we got were that map. But I guess my point was just to give background, not to really say whether it was good or bad. I was trying to remain neutral in this section.
I mean, this is kind of relevant to you too, George. I assume for inland wetlands. Yeah, you might have some insight here.
Marla gets involved with MS4, right? Dennis, you're the engineer. That's your specialty. But inland wetlands has comments and contributes to this in some ways, I guess, depending on the extent and where the activities take place, right? I always defer to my subject matter experts on this stuff, but. I think it's I think it's all how you look. We look at all these elements. It's not a one item or one particular segment. It's here's the facts. Now some of these things we can put in footnotes, and we can say, hey, look, we're working on it. We've embraced it. We've contributed. We've invested in it, and to make the town better, and that contributes to the environment as a whole, and it contributes. I mean, implicit in that statement is that it contributes to our, country, nation, global, whatever. But at the same time, to date, maybe we haven't seen as much as we had hoped for. However, we aspire to be, I don't know, forestall any adverse outcomes. I don't know how you phrase it, but do you need to? Or how much do we have to say about it? It's an element. We've done it. We're responsible citizens, corporately, as from a statewide standpoint, from a environmental and infrastructure standpoint. And I don't know if more needs to be said.
Yeah. Okay. Dennis, maybe you and I can bat this back and forth a little bit more to try to figure out what we really need to say here.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, let's just move on to this next paragraph. Public works projects are often viewed favorably by residents, particularly highly visible projects such as road improvements. However, there is a disparity in public expressions of support for such projects and the willingness of residents to accept a level of taxation commensurate with infrastructure needs. In a low-density municipality such as Thompson, the tax base is insufficient to subsidize adequate levels of long-term maintenance to existing roads. An increase in allowable density and just as an aside, density patterns is one of the sort of mandated things in the PoCD. An increase in allowable density along existing public roads can serve to offset some of the additional costs, but it should be stated plainly that it is not in the best interest of Thompson to permit any new roads to be accepted by the town. Accordingly, it is recommended that the Thompson subdivision regulations be revised to disincentivize the construction of new roads to serve new subdivisions. More on this topic will be explored in section 17.1. And then I just tacked on the little factoids about the public works budget. Dennis had posed the question, is it useful to find comparisons to other municipalities and what their percentage of public works spending is, which, could be interesting, particularly if it reflects favorably on Thompson. I'm not sure whether higher or lower spending in other communities reflects positively or negatively in terms of a comparison. So that's just what I have there for overview. Comments, particularly from Dennis, I think. Anybody?
Well, I did spend an hour or so trying to look at I looked at Woodstock and Putnam just for kicks to see what their percentages were, but there wasn't enough data on either of their websites to really come up with a conclusion. So I don't know if it's worth the effort either. I gave it a little bit. I gave it a shot, and it wasn't easy to come up with the comparable figures.
Okay. I mean, I like Dennis, I was looking at this really as just background for the most part, although obviously I do make the suggestion about really de-incentivizing construction of new roads, because I think we have to continue to do that. New roads are a loser. Many of the things that people complain about in terms of adding housing can really actually be boiled down to, we really don't want new roads, because that's what adds municipal costs. If you have a road with 20 houses on it and you add 10 more houses, the cost of repairs to that road does not go up. But, the number of taxpayers who pay for that road does. So, you know, that's
That's
a
a
point
good-
I want
so that's a
to,
good
I would
thing,
like
right?
to emphasize.
It's a good
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
I just don't know
Yeah,
if this goes
but
into-
you get the anti-density argument is what I'm saying, and it comes up fairly persistently based on a false assumption that adding residences automatically adds expenses. And it's based on what I believe is a fallacy in understanding how it all works.
Yeah, you're right, absolutely. And that goes back to some fundamentals, which probably aren't addressed in this document, but it comes down to fundamental understanding of finance and money and all those, how it works, right? And where the money comes from and what do you do with it and where does it go? But that's outside of this document, right? But it's fundamental.
Well, I don't know. It's sort of here.
You'd hope, yeah. We're living with it. This is where the money meets the road, literally.
Can you go back a sec?
Sure.
So
How far back?
This is just supposed to be like an overview of public works, or?
Yeah, I mean, that's how I've titled the section. You know, each subsection, I'm kind of going overview and then topics inside.
It doesn't give me a good
That
picture.
may.
It does not give me a good public works picture of the department. It tells me what your opinion is of how people are unwilling to pay for projects. But is that really what we're supposed to be using this section for? I'm asking.
That's a good point.
Yeah, it's a legitimate question. Some of this stuff is kind of placeholder in that I had asked Rich and Kelly for some material which has not been provided, so I was just trying to flesh this out so we had something to critique, which is what we're doing here.
They do roads, they do bridges, they do obviously the transfer station will come up later. They maintain the library building, the highway garage. I mean, there's just so much to it, and this seems very weak. So.
Public Works does a lot, so maybe we should accentuate the positive. For example, when I lived in Mansfield, Massachusetts, my town roads were never plowed. When I moved here, they're always plowed. That's a real plus.
Who do you know?
I don't know anybody. My road hasn't been paved in 30 years, but it gets plowed. My point is that maybe that's an example, but my point is there's a lot of pluses. Our public works folks do a lot of great stuff, and maybe we should find out what those things are, and let's find. Let's find the pluses. Let's find the positives. They do so many things that they get the credit for, and I don't know if Kelly is aware of all those things, and maybe the public works manager can help. They do emergency repairs to damaged culverts, for example, and they do all these things that you don't realize that are out there, but they, it's sort of like they keep their trains running on time and they keep things moving. And the problem with being public works or any support structure is that if it works, nobody cares. If it doesn't work, you get heartburn, right? You just get yelled at because it didn't work. But you've been slaving away making it work. So with that as a backdrop, looking at this section, I'm wondering if we can maybe find some of the pluses that we're better than other people, that we've done better, because those people work hard. The folks I know that are in the public works department, they're good folks. They work hard. They do stuff they don't have to do.
Yeah,
so
I would love to
that.
get that contribution back from Rich or Kelly. I will be perfectly frank. I do not anticipate that they will turn anything around to me.
I know, but that's the problem.
That's going to have to be Rich. I don't think Kelly would have a good feel for that. I think we can trap Rich into a conversation. I think we could get some good information. It might not
or all you have to do is write something negative in this spot and he'll be right on it.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, I have sent this to him for comment several times already. I'm just going to say that. I have specifically asked, please tell me what you would like here. Please tell me what you would like as a wish, and that's how I phrase it. What's your wish list for the next 10 years? What do you want to say? What do you want to do?
But remember what the public
somewhat
works
hopeful
is all
that
about,
I'll get
right?
that eventually.
Remember what they're about, right? They're about building roads and making things and sand and gravel and, coal patch, and they're into stuff. They have trucks and they've got equipment. So, an email from, just like writing documents is probably not their preferred, day-to-day activity. Like many of us love that stuff, right? We write reports and analysis and stuff. I'm wondering if we corner them as as Renee points out, and say, hey, Rich, you know, we need to herald all your successes. Tell us about some of the stuff. Maybe interview him and get him to
Right.
interview and give an interview of the Public Works Director and put that here instead. Say, tell us about the great things you've done, because you know what? I think there's a lot of great stuff nobody knows.
Him. We're not putting him verbatim in this document. No.
Well, that's what editors are for. That's what editors are for.
But I do agree,
Hello?
Tara.
Can I say something?
Sure.
Of course.
Yes, please, Karen.
Why don't you talk to Ken? Because he served
Yes.
as the interim and he knows all the
Yes.
jobs that had happened, and he interviewed for the new position, and he's got all those kind of buzzwords you need about mowing and whatever they do. He's got it.
That's true. That's true. I do like your idea, though, Tara, of, you know, here are some of the great things we've been able to accomplish through our DPW, but it does not mean that we don't have great infrastructure needs. And it is the truth. People are not willing to pay the tax level. So that's got to be in there, because I think it's an important part of this. It is.
Yeah, again, remember, guys, not just a rah-rah, but also a planning guidance document. Like, this is where we need the help.
Right.
So
They could be
I want to find that
aspirational.
balance.
It can be aspirational and say, and this is what we'd like to accomplish, and this is what we want to do. It doesn't have to be, you know, we don't have to gild the lily too much, but we still have to say, let's say this is what we've done successfully. This is what we're trying to achieve, and then here's what we can do if we had the additional resources, which takes the following, right?
Yeah.
It's all the same. It's all truthful. It's just how how are we going to pitch it, and are we going to get their attention?
So,
you know, we're going to get the hook.
So here's my let's fund our road maintenance pitch.
Okay.
In fiscal 21, $375,000 was budgeted for road resurfacing projects by the Department of Public Works. Average costs for road repairs on local roads are $250,000 per road mile, a road mile being both sides of a typical two-lane road. That is information I did get from Rich. Therefore, in the fiscal 21 year, the town of Thompson has budgeted for repairs on 1.5 miles of local roads. This figure does not include any potential state or federal grant money, which may be awarded for specific projects, but only represents money sourced directly from Thompson taxpayers. And Dennis, if I have any of this wrong, call it out to me.
Did Dennis say there's 90 miles of roads in the town or something? So it's going to take 50 years to fix them?
We're getting there, George.
Okay.
Asphalt roads typically have a functional lifespan of roughly 15 years before they are assumed to require significant repairs, resurfacing. With 95.97 miles of improved roads in Thompson, budgeting for 1.5 miles of road resurfacing per fiscal year clearly is insufficient to properly maintain the roads in an acceptable and safe condition. Assuming that the schedule of repairs should be staggered to resurface all public roads on a 15-year cycle, the town should be allowing for the resurfacing of roughly 6.5 road miles per year. Further assuming, which is a big assumption, that's the only one I can make, that the average cost per road mile remains stable at $250,000, an appropriate annual resurfacing budget would be $1.625 million.
Okay, period. I want to ask, does he think, can our highway department do that much road in a year?
They did it last year.
Okay. Okay, just checking.
That was one of their big accomplishments, was that they did, I don't know if it was exactly 6.5, but it was 6-ish, almost 7 maybe miles of road, which was the first time in a while.
Where do you get the
This
money?
underscores the assertion, they had it from something, who knows what.
Previous year, previous year, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this underscores the assertion in the previous section that the town must take steps to discourage the construction and adoption of new roads by the town. We therefore repeat the recommendation that the subdivision regulations be revised to minimize the extent to which the construction of new roads would be possible. New cul-de-sacs, which provide no utility to any taxpayers beyond the residents on such roads, should be explicitly disallowed for acceptance by the town, and where proposed by the developer of the subdivision, should exist only as private roads or shared driveways maintained by the homeowners along its course in association. Dennis, I know you have something to contribute here, but let me just finish the section and then come back and tell me everything that's wrong with it.
Scroll.
Thank you. Increasing allowable residential density on existing roads is a means by which property tax income could be increased without adding significant maintenance burden to the town. Using the hypothetical of a 1-mile stretch of road with the current minimum allowable frontage of 150 feet, a maximum of 70 homes could be located on that road, 35 per side. If that mile of road costs $250,000 to repair every 15 years, then the amount of tax paid per household dedicated to road maintenance should be $238.10 per year for 15 years, a 15-year total of $3,571.43. The average annual property tax bill for Thompson is $2,870.76, meaning that an average of 8.3% of a Thompson resident's annual tax levy should be designated for road maintenance. If allowable density is increased by reducing the frontage requirement to 100 feet, that same mile of road could accommodate up to 104 houses, reducing the average annual tax burden per household to $160.25 over 15 years for a total of $2,403.85, or 5.5% of the annual average tax bill. When the PZC recently revised their zoning regulations, the idea of increasing allowable density by reducing the minimum road frontage was rejected by a majority of the commissioners. Resistance was based on concern that Thompson would be at risk of losing its rural character if an increase in density is permitted. While such concerns are reasonable, the calculations shown above demonstrate that current density rates do not support a fully funded road maintenance program. This creates a conflict between two reasonable demands. Given that taxation rates do not reasonably support the effective maintenance of the public infrastructure, it is recommended that allowable density in the rural residential agricultural district created in the 2020 overhaul of the zoning regulations be examined again at the end of the decade. It should also be pointed out that it may not be necessary to increase density in every neighborhood and along every road to the full capacity of 104 parcels per road mile, as long as the average density of 104 parcels per mile is achieved. Therefore, higher density should be encouraged along the downtown mill rehabilitation district, common. These areas are served in whole or in part by public water and sewer utilities and can therefore accommodate even higher density, serving to offset the wider separations between parcels in the rural residential agricultural district. Regardless of the strategy pursued to improve the town's capacity, road maintenance is absolutely critical. The longer maintenance and repairs are delayed, the greater the eventual cost. If no maintenance or repairs are performed, the road will completely fail, reaching a state where repairs are useless and the road must be completely reconstructed. Failure to budget for road maintenance, therefore, is short-sighted and leads to increased future costs, defeating the purpose of deferring repairs in the interest of short-term savings. All right, what's wrong with it, Dennis?
I really didn't, I mean, I didn't check your math on every single item, so assuming it's all correct, I really don't have, I mean, it's pretty much a factual statement. The only thing, we say a mile of road costs $250,000 to repair. I mean, whole books have been written on this subject, so I'm not sure we can cover it in a document like this, but I guess the point is you take care of it. It's like anything else. If you maintain it as you go along, then, you know, you fix the potholes, you fix the drainage problem as it pops up, the road lasts longer. If you do absolutely nothing for 15 years, then you've basically got to tear the whole thing out and rebuild a new road. So I just wonder what the 250,000 stands for. Is that full reconstruction at the end? Because maybe there's some intermediate point where we maintain the roads and oil them and gravel them and do a top coat, 1.5-inch top coat every 10 years, and that would prolong the life of the road as opposed to just waiting 15 years and then rebuilding it. But that may be too detailed for this section.
I'll ask Rich to elaborate then on what that 250,000 per road mile is. I mean, he had that figure right to hand, so I assume that he has calculated it. But what that encompasses, yes, I also do not know other than general resurfacing.
It
The
sounds
other,
cheaper than what it costs to rebuild a road, to reconstruct a road, because that's at $47.35 per linear foot per mile on a 15-year basis. It's based on the numbers.
to your point,
I did the calculation
another,
here.
Go ahead,
another
Renee.
point
Go ahead.
to your density is that those of us who are on the sewer line, those fees are going up again. And they're pretty significant, and that the sewer plant that we have is nowhere near capacity. So
I would
don't
think
know
it
if
wouldn't be.
So I would say that is a point for your argument for greater density, at least in the area there's sewer and water.
Yeah.
Which was also, assuming that what we adopted last night ends up becoming effective on the 15th, in that district and any place where it is served by sewer and water, we reduced the frontage to 50 feet based on the capacity of the lot because of public water and sewer. So that strategy is built in.
Oh, okay.
What's that?
I thought you said something about it failing.
What they rejected was reducing in the bulk of the residential areas. In other words, the former R80, R40, which is all private water and sewer.
Okay.
There was a very robust discussion on at least 3 occasions of whether we should reduce that to 100 feet of frontage versus the current level of 150. And that was one where I lost the argument, but it was fine because I gained something else in return. But it was just a bridge too far for the commission to reduce the frontages there. But you know, I'm
dissidence here on this whole matter. You know, the disconnect between the reality of what costs are and what they're willing to do. I mean, I don't know if that's even reconcilable, right? I mean, it costs money to have infrastructure. You don't want to pay for it, then you bear the cost of the result.
Now, Dennis, you did want to make some points, I think, about my assertion that in subdivisions we should be encouraging, if they want to cut into a parcel, certainly no cul-de-sacs, but you know, shared driveways or private roads, anything that disincentivizes the addition of new roads. But you said you had some cautionary tales about private roads.
I do, but isn't there a section further on where we get into this in detail?
Well, there will be late in the document, you know, in that whole discussion of subdivision. Not least because that's going to be.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I think it would probably belong more there because it's another whole philosophical argument of what happens when you have private roads, and you know, I've seen it happen in other towns that went that route. I think again, it would probably be more of a negative thing. And it would probably be, it's more of a detailed item that should probably go in a later section, I think, if we want to have it in there at all.
Yeah, well, at some point I'm going to have to address it substantively, not just in this document, but as soon as I'm done with this one, next year's project is the subdivision regulations. Because with the zoning regulations overhaul and the next logical step is to overhaul that last document, which should not be as time consuming as the zoning regulations because it's based on them. But, you know, they've all got to work together. So certainly I'd like to touch on it in this document. I tend to agree with you that we could flesh that out more in the actual discussion of subdivision and just sort of introduce the concept here, right? In public radio, repetition is success. You repeat until it has an impact. So that's the principle I'm operating on. Joe Yamartino, are you still here?
Yes, I am, Madame.
All right, you want to, I mean, does anybody else have anything on this before we move on to public buildings?
The only thing I have a question on is in the sentence that says you created the 2020 overhaul, the zoning regulations, that you're recommending that density in the rural area be reviewed again at the end of the decade? Why do we have to wait at the end of the decade?
Because we just adopted it and it was rejected in this go round. So I'm just setting it up. It's not an overhaul. It's not an overhaul like a total rewrite. It's at the end of 10 years, if we have not accomplished what we want to do with the regulatory overhaul that we just did, here is an item that we should make a point of looking at. You know, it's possible that I would, well,
That's
maybe.
a long time. That would be an item in it. I don't know that you want to set that as your goal to change that. If we are already saying, you know, we're not meeting what we need to fund the roads. If it's that vital.
I guess it's a roundabout way, Renee, of saying we'll give this a chance again because we've made some other improvements. But if it fails to deliver, we've got to fix it. I mean, I guess that's a less direct way of coming out and saying that.
Okay.
Because I think, and this is me editorializing again, I think that the resistance to that idea of building density is pretty baked in.
Okay.
So if we are essentially looking at it from this point, 2020, and saying we're going to examine what the effect is of not allowing this density increase, and we are allowing an increase in density in the public water and sewer areas. So maybe that will be enough, right? So if that's not enough, here's a place where we have some room.
Yeah, I think you're going to find it's not. But anyway, let's move on.
I also think we're going to find that it's not enough, but I can't force the issue. I tried.
But you could look at it before another 10 years. That's all.
Oh, I see. I see what you're saying.
That's the only point.
Moving on. I'm making a note. Before 10 years.
Put it on your 10-year list.
It's on the 10-year list. Okay, Joey Martino provided much of this draft. So again, I will read it and we can decide what else we want to say here. This is more of an overview, I think, than something that really makes action items, but and maybe it does, maybe it doesn't need that. So as is typical of many small New England towns, Thompson's public buildings have been modified and used for a variety of functions over the years. For example, the 1842 Old Town Hall and the 1902 library still stand, fully restored by the Thompson Historical Society and in use as museums. These venerable buildings are located near the Thompson Common in the heart of the Thompson Hill Village. This historic village center was added in 1987 to the National Register of Historic Places. Several of the Little Village school buildings still are in use, one as a small millwork fabricator, another as an American Legion Hall, a third as a VFW hall, and a fourth as a private social club. Repurpose and reuse is a consistent theme in Thompson, a town that appreciates its past, maintains its traditions, and shows its character by incorporating the old into the new. Adaptive reuse of buildings, in addition to preserving structures of local historic interest, also reduces landfill from demolition and uses fewer materials, energy, and other resources than new construction. Given these facts, adaptive reuse of public structures as they age out of current uses must remain a priority going forward. The current town hall began life as the town garage, housing the few school buses in use in the 1930s. Ever economical in thinking, Thompson launched a Depression-era WPA work project that added a second story of offices for town officials following the great 1938 hurricane. With other renovations over the years and the town vehicles moved to a purpose-built garage about 1 mile away, the two-story town hall remains in regular use today, nearing its 90th year of operation. The other public buildings in town include the public school campus built around the original 1909 Turtelot Memorial High School. Today, the Riverside Drive complex also houses the Mary R. Fisher Elementary School and Thompson Middle School. The school will be discussed in more detail in section 14. The Thompson Public Library and Louis P. Foucher Community Center, is it Foucher or Fauché? Everybody says stuff anglicized around here, right?
Faucher is all I keep hearing.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, okay. Faucher Community Center was built in 1994 in North Grosvenor-Dale, the largest of Thompson's 10 villages. Further exploration of the public library may be found in section 15. The Thompson Sewer Authority facility, located in the village of Mechanicsville, is located just north of the Putnam Town line on Route 12. The facility treats, and I did verify this, an average of 350 gallons per day, roughly 127,750,000 gallons per year for approximately 1,200 customers. Slightly less than 1/3 of the residential and commercial properties in Thompson, therefore, have access to the municipal water utility. The town highway garage houses the construction vehicles, snowplows, and school buses serving the municipality. Other town facilities include the town pound. Do we have a town pound? That was a question I wanted to ask you the other day. I thought NECOG maintained a pound.
No,
Yeah,
we
we-
have, oh, go ahead.
We have one up there by the town transfer station.
Yes.
On
We do.
Passay Road, is it? Right there before the former landfill, right? On the right-hand side, no, going north? East side of the road.
Look
And
at
we
that. I
just
learned
hired-
something.
We just hired a new officer, animal control officer. And so that is going to be a functioning pound again. It's been kind of on hiatus because NECOG was running that service for us out of their building, but we have a new
Okay,
person.
so I wasn't totally off in left field on that.
No,
Okay.
Do we still park school buses at the town highway garage?
As of last year, we did.
yeah, I think we do, but they're just not ours.
Oh, they're just not ours. Okay, just wanted to make
Yep.
sure. I was like,
We're closing in here, guys. I see
Yep.
people yawning, and I apologize. Charlene's stamina and mine have been built for these long meetings, I think, lately. Other town facilities include the town pound, efficiently run waste transfer station, the building committee, and this is, I was trying to tie the building committee in here. I had asked John Rice some questions. The building committee is made up of 8 appointed volunteer members and oversees major capital projects in Thompson. Major repairs to town facilities would fall under their jurisdiction for planning and review. At this time, that says that it should say there is no single long-term master plan for projects under the building committee. It is a recommendation of this document that such a plan be drafted and published on the town website. Oh, I guess I didn't finish that sentence before I sent it. Sorry, guys. So that's that section. Comments, additions, deletions? How do we make it more functional?
Well, I like the idea.
Thank you, Joe, for drafting it, by the way.
Thank you for editing it.
I like the idea of the master plan.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised when I asked John and he said there was no such thing. I found that pretty flabbergasting, actually.
We used
How is
to,
that possible?
I mean,
Why
each
can I
department is
scroll it now?
supposed to do their own, but
Gee, press the button.
Anybody have anything
Yeah.
here?
Yeah, the efficiently run waste transfer station. That doesn't sound right. It's the transfer station and recycling center.
Got it. Hopefully I can read my handwriting tomorrow. Usually I can. I don't know, anybody else got anything else?
the only other thing I would say, I'm hopping on Karen's remark that we have a pretty darn good transfer station. So I don't know if you somewhere else that we live right.
That's coming up.
Oh, okay,
Right.
Karen.
Right below it.
Okay.
I don't fall asleep.
In fact,
though.
yeah, that's really, that's one of the last 2 sections that I had drafted over to you guys. I did start to go over parks with Leslie today, so I'd like to discuss it, but there's no draft material. So we can move on to waste management and the transfer station. Are we good?
Yeah.
All right. Located at 85 Passay Road, and I should say a lot of this came directly from Lynn Landry. Almost all of it, in fact, except some stuff that I added specific to the litter management projects that we've done, because this seemed like a good place to put them. So just keeping that in mind. Located at 85 Passay Road, the Thompson Transfer Station serves approximately half of all Thompson households. Recycling is mandatory in Connecticut, and Thompson's facility has a thoughtfully planned, well-maintained system for residents to deposit a wide variety of recycled materials. I feel like that should be recyclable.
Yeah, and you should call it transfer station and recycling center.
Throughout, okay.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Yep. Easy to do. Under state of Connecticut guidelines, computers, electronics, televisions, and mattresses are accepted at no charge. Information on proper paint disposal is available. There are several items that incur a fee, including free-on appliances, tires, propane tanks, and bulky waste. There is a periodic household hazardous waste collection, which is open to all Thompson residents. The transfer station is operated by the Department of Public Works and is open 4 days a week, each week, excluding holidays or storm days when the 2 staff members are required for different duties. The transfer station is also a popular site for fundraisers like the Veterans Poppy Sale. Annual permits are sold in the tax collector's office. There is a reduced rate for senior households, age 65 or older. Permits for multi-unit dwellings or for those who collect for more than one household are also available. The Board of Selectmen set the rates.
Please scroll.
The Board of Selectmen sets the rates for permits and fees at the transfer station. The Transfer Station Advisory Committee, begun in September 2001, meets semi-annually and is advisory to the Board of Selectmen. It has the following mission statement. The Thompson Transfer Station Advisory Committee is a committee of volunteer residents formed to improve the waste disposal system for the town of Thompson, which will be cost-effective, equitable for users of the transfer station, and environmentally sound. This committee addresses issues facing the Thompson Transfer Station and will revise throughout to include the recycling bit, regarding cost, regulation, recycling education, and options of efficient operations and enforcement. By acting as a forum for transfer station issues, we hope to increase awareness of Thompson residents for Thompson residents to recycle, to care for the environment, and to be responsible citizens for the beautification of our town. So here are my additions on litter management. In June of 2019, the EDC Branding Implementation Subcommittee hosted a community visiting exercise where attendees were invited to work in teams to discover common priorities for Thompson. In the final results of the evening, the closely related topics of litter management and waste management were highly rated by the vast majority of participants. 91% and 82% scored these topics important, respectively. Responding to this, 2 grassroots initiatives arose to increase awareness of litter management, both facilitated by the Office of Planning and Development in partnership with local nonprofit Thompson Together. In October 2019, the first annual Upcycled Art Show was presented at the popular town-wide celebration Community Day. Participants were asked to submit works of art utilizing materials diverted from the waste stream. The event proved popular and the feature was continued for October 2020. In April 2020, in alignment with the annual month-long town-wide roadside cleanup, a limited duration pilot program titled Nips for Holiday Cheer was introduced to help gather data in support of an improved bottle bill for the state of Connecticut. In this program, Thompson residents were encouraged to say, you've heard all that. What I will, once the final data is in, I'll actually drop that in. I'm going to drop in data. Program captured easy to understand, high quality data regarding the number of nips that accumulate on the roadsides in Thompson during a given year, and also supported the hypothesis that assigning value to nips alongside the other returnables on the current bottle bill will result in higher numbers of nips diverted off the roadsides and ultimately out of our rivers, streams, and oceans. Data collected is being shared with state lawmakers and beverage industry nonprofits to support work on improved legislation for Connecticut. Additionally, based on the high priority given to litter and waste management by Thompson residents, It is recommended that the transfer station explore the possibility of switching to some form of pay-as-you-throw program.
Please scroll,
PAYT program.
scroll up.
But
PAYT
before you, while you have a
program.
breath there, you know,
Yeah,
is
me,
NIPS,
I want,
do we really need NIPS? I mean, I was shocked when I read about this. It seems like it portrays the town as being a bunch of,
drunks, yeah.
you know, I mean,
Well,
am I the only one that's thinking this? Or, you know,
they're everywhere,
No.
George. They're everywhere, George. What we did was did something about it.
I'm not
Yeah.
I'm not disputing that. I'm just wondering if a lot of things we do things about, but is that do we want to put it in the plan?
Yeah, my feeling is that there needs to be more emphasis on the annual townwide cleanup, which
There you
residents
go.
have been committed to for how many decades now? And that
20 years.
that has to be more emphasized than the NIPS program, which was a one-time thing.
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah,
the
no
NIPS
problem
are
there.
great. I think the NIPS are great. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it's great to get the revenue and all that, but I read that I saw the thing about the NIPS. I see them. Hey, I walk out my driveway and I see them on the road, and I'm like, who are these people? You know, but is it something we want to put in a plan like this? You know, I keep wondering, is this the right place for it? So I echo Renee's observations there.
That was
Well,
Karen. That was
Karen.
Karen's
Karen.
I'm sorry,
observation.
Karen.
I
All
will,
right, but-
I will say one thing about this, and it's not necessarily to defend or not defend its presence here. This pilot program, and I agree on emphasizing the townwide cleanup, by the way.
Yeah.
So I might bullet point it separately. This program is getting a certain amount of attention as a pilot for other communities to potentially pick up. And it is in support of potential legislature. So even though I hear what you're saying about, oh my God, we're a bunch of drunks, the drunks are everywhere. The reason they end up on the sides of the road is something nobody can do anything about, which is that you don't want to get caught drinking and driving, so you throw it out your window.
where I would,
What we can do is, yeah.
no, I was going to say, if you're going to look at this paragraph and re-emphasize that about the bottle bill, as opposed to this is something that happened in Thompson.
Yeah.
Put the
Okay, so
statewide,
emphasize bottle bill.
right, the statewide problem, the national problem, the garbage problem is the problem. Here's what Thompson decided to do about it this year to support the bottle bill.
That's a good pickup, Karen.
Yeah.
I like that.
De-emphasize the other part.
Yeah, I got that. Okay. Additionally, based on the high priority given to litter and waste management by Thompson residents of pay-as-you-throw programs. Pay-as-you-throw programs are preferred by the state of Connecticut and also are among the potential initiatives to earn certification points with Sustainable Connecticut, of which Thompson is a member community as yet uncertified. In 2012, the Transfer Station Advisory Committee compiled a document titled Comparison of Disposal Systems, to which I can link. It's on the website. I'm just going to make a note to myself, link, which can also be found on the town's website. Although the document does not make a formal recommendation based on the various pros and cons identified for different forms of PAYT, a weight-based model appears to be the most favorable for Thompson. This is based both on the relatively low cost to implement in comparison to other models and also logical consistency, i.e. the transfer station pays tipping fees based by weight to dispose of the waste, therefore consumers paying by weight would be a fair way to charge. An action plan to move towards a pay-by-weight model was not proposed in that document, but we would recommend serious consideration of such an adjustment over the next decade. That is obviously me making a recommendation.
Yeah.
Do we want to include that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm saying who's making this recommendation? I'm going to give you a little bit of a history. The pay as you, I don't know, I don't remember the document. I guess we did it, but because other people were pushing for pay by the bag and things like that. The history of the advisory committee is that everybody who wanted the pay as you throw system eventually quit. And the people that are now on the committee have been adamant about recycling education, and that the system that we have now prevents people from dumping their garbage on our roadsides. If we make them pay, it's a good deal now what they pay for their permits, even if it's raised compared to a trash hauler. And if we go to paying by the bag, people are going to leave more and more garbage on the side of the road. So if you're making a recommendation, I wish you would come to the meeting Thursday to the committee and pitch it, because so far the committee has not seen this as a viable way to go. The weight, the scale system, there's no budget to put in that kind of system and no manpower to really monitor it. Now there's been a change in personnel there at the transfer station, and maybe they could implement something, and maybe the technology is newer than 2012 and we could look at it again. But right now the committee is not on board with pay as you throw. I'm just putting that out there.
No, I can take that out there. Again, a lot of this is me boilerplating this stuff so that we had something to discuss and decide on that can easily come out. For whatever it's worth, I've read the state documents on pay-as-you-throw systems. They all identify those same objections, and statistically, they find them not borne out. If I have a criticism of that document online, and I did mention this to Lynn, nobody showed their work. It appeared very much like this, like me saying, I recommend this because I think so. I didn't see the source of their determination of which pros were pros and which, why they said these things were pros and why they said these things were cons. I'm happy to link to it and refer to it. I'm happy to take the recommendation out if you think it won't fly. I have no problem with that.
If the selectmen decided they wanted us to address it again, then we could look at it, new technologies and the new transfer station, the new Department of Public Works might insist that they want to go this route, but so far we haven't heard any advice to take this up again. So it's the pay-as-you-throw has been kind of a dead issue for a while.
Okay, fair enough. So if you had a wish list, Karen, to put in here for 10-year goals, short-term goals, what might you add here? I see this that Lynn put down about a 10-year plan to replace the facility.
Well, I don't know if this is going to come out in another part of this document, but the fact that the equipment there's no plan to replace broken equipment. There's no funding for it, would require grants or something. I noticed that you took out Lynn's line on compliance, which is one of the biggest issues. So
it wasn't positing anything, so I scrubbed it because it didn't seem like it was. It was an odd fit, but I can put it back in. I still have the original.
I mean, if we're talking about issues that we want to address in the 10 years, there's a change in personnel, so there should be increased compliance with the rules at the transfer station. But also we have this problem with roadside dumping, and you might want to mention somewhere a issue for Thompson is being on the state line, having towns adjacent to us with more restrictive transfer station or waste management rules. And so people come across the state line or the town line and dump their garbage on Thompson roads. So this is an issue for the Department of Public Works, always going out and having to pick up televisions and broken toilets and things that people leave, and bags that fly out of trucks. So compliance and roadside dumping are a big issue.
Okay. But that clarifies that item for me, Karen, because the way Lynn had phrased it, it wasn't saying anything to me. So that's the reason I scrubbed it. And then if we...
She might have been diplomatic.
She might have what?
Been trying to be diplomatic, because the issues that have been ongoing have been, some of it have been employees. And also it's up to the Board of Selectmen basically to pull people's permits if they're non-compliant. And we haven't seen any cooperation in that sense.
Okay, all right. So that all tells me a lot more here. Excellent. I'm so glad you tuned in.
So one of the things,
Anybody else have anything here? Questions, comments?
yeah, I see there. So part of the safety committee, the transfer station comes up, and their highway guys are members of the safety committee, and that has come up as an issue of what there's no running water there. Has there been any thought on how to handle that for? I mean, you've got employees there all day.
I don't know. Rich made a lot of changes in that little booth as far as a heater and things like that. I'm not sure if he's done anything about water access or washing hands. I don't know.
So Karen, one of the things that I wanted to do, since you guys actually have a meeting this week, which I cannot attend,
Yeah,
unfortunately, was to have you take this for further comment. So I will forward you tomorrow. I'm going to incorporate all of this into a revision to reflect all of the changes that we've got. It'll still need work, but I'll excerpt that for you, Karen, and you can take that to that committee for more comment, because that'll make it really useful, I think.
Yeah, we will do that. There may be things I forgot, so yeah.
Anybody else have anything else on this? Almost there, guys. Sidewalks, bike paths, and trails. A little bit about the requirement from the statute, because this is one of those sort of mandatory things, is pedestrian connectivity kind of stuff. So I talk about the sidewalk program that the sidewalk reconstruction that we just, I don't want to beat that horse because I talk about it so much.
What about the bike trail?
What's that? Who was that?
Nothing. David's asking me a question, but you go ahead. I'll find out what he's talking about.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Sidewalks. So what I did find, because I knew I had seen, and Dennis, the one that Janet sent me was the one I was thinking of. It was not a specific bike ped study is all. I did find that 2016 road safety assessment, which actually has some great information in there, which identifies a whole bunch of areas that need upgrades. Good news, we're already doing something with the sidewalk improvement that we're funding the design of with the BAR grant funds, and which we hope to get lot SIP funding for, and all indications are that they give that money out as soon as they get it, kind of thing, that it's an underutilized grant fund, so we're highly likely to be funded. And the Blaine Road intersection was another thing that got mentioned there. But I will skip some of that down to the 2016 RSA also called out the lack of safety accommodations for cyclists. Possible solutions include painting bike lanes, sharrows, onto the pavement and putting roads on lane diets, narrowing the space given to automobiles in order to add bike lanes and slow traffic speeds. Further attention is given to connectivity with Thompson's extensive system of trails and enhancing safety for recreational trail users. There will be further explanation of Thompson trails in sections 8.7 and 11.6 through 11.8. It should be pointed out that several recommendations from the 2016 RSA have already been put in motion. For example, in section 4.1 of that report, short-term recommendations, items 11 and 14 regarding placement of new or improved crosswalks at various locations on Riverside Drive are being addressed in the sidewalk design by Freeman Companies. Similarly, under section 4.3 long-term recommendations, item 3 is to evaluate alternatives to redesign the Route 12 Blaine Road intersection. That project has also been contracted for design by local firm Provost and Rivero to be completed by the Department of Public Works. As of this writing, those plans have been approved by CONDOT and are tentatively scheduled for construction in spring of 2021. Karen and Leslie and Dennis, I think all of you might have some like useful input here from an engineering and a user standpoint. So lay it on me. Dennis, I can see you, so I'm looking at you first.
I haven't seen the RSA, so I'd like to take a peek at that before I made any further input. That would be an interesting document to take a look at.
I will send that to you tomorrow morning.
Thank you.
Karen, did you want to make any specific comments on trails? Because what I had for information was light on trails, although it does address them, just in terms of an infrastructure recommendation.
I mean, isn't there another trail section later in this?
There is. I would say that this is more about the connectivity of the trails, whereas the latter is intended to be a little more about the recreational asset. So I think of this more as a transportation.
Yeah, I'd have to go through. I mean, Charlie has,
Yes.
this huge list of what about Plum Road? How do we
Yep.
connect over by the condos? How do we get to the airline trail? That's all downtown North Grosvenor stuff. So that stuff should, some of it, well, I guess it wasn't in that 2016. I don't know.
Kira, Charlie and I.
Some of it might be.
Charlie
What, Renee?
Charlie and I participated in that 2016 survey.
Oh, you did?
I did. So Charlie definitely has some strong suggestions for the whole Plum Road thing, which is about connectivity. So I know.
Perfect.
We got to kind of get it out of him.
I'll bring a different.
And when you're talking about road crossings, I mean, we have the new road crossings up at New Road and East Thompson Road and to the airline. I don't know if you want to include some of that has been done now. The road, that the highway department just did the road crossing lines in the road. So as something that's already been done.
Yes, I would love those optimistic factoids since I don't gravitate to them naturally.
I will have to think about this for a little bit and see what else we might want to add as far as from the trails perspective.
Okay. All right, so that's everything I had drafted, because then we get into a section that's going to come up for review at a later time. Except Leslie and I started talking about public parks and green space. Leslie, do you want to just make some observations about what you want to include in there, and I'll get that drafted in to send back to everybody for comment? If you're still there. I'm going to stop screen sharing because I don't have anything else.
She mentioned something to me, Tara, today. We had a conversation.
Oh, she's gone anyway.
Mentioning about listing the parks and kind of the activities that are done at each park kind of thing.
I did start to do that with her this afternoon. I just could not get it in time to get over to you guys.
The other conversation is about cemeteries. I would definitely hook that up with conservation. Because Carolyn did a whole inventory, you know that, right? Of cemetery.
I believe I was at one time aware of that. George, you're not on conservation too, are you?
No, I'm not. I'm only on inland wetlands.
Who's in the
There's a full inventory in the vault, but conservation, I think, would be the place for cemeteries.
Okay, so we're at 9:45, so I'm going to call it because I have no more draft, or at least I'm not going to read anymore. So if anybody else has anything they want to add before we wrap it up, and then tomorrow I will rework the whole thing and send it back for written comment. Anybody have anything they're burning to communicate right now?
Great job. You've done it's tough to do, and I can't imagine how hard it was to write all this and have it sort of picked apart. So,
you want to know the truth, George? It's not hard for me at all.
oh, well, you're a special person. I always take that pride of authorship, and I always get it personal. So good for you.
Yeah. No, I don't take any of it personally, and the writing I actually find somewhat enjoyable, although challenging in places where I'm out of my whatever bizarre
Wheelhouse.
expertise I might have. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's not use that word anymore because
Yes.
that made me so mad. Anyway.
Okay.
Okay, so next meeting is me and Cindy and hopefully the fire marshal and Steve Benoit next week. So I'm going to try to do that during office hours, which means the people on this call, me, Renee, Charlene, Joe, adding Joanne Hall and Jeff Bolte will meet on Thursday, the 10th of September. So if you're not on one of those two, I'll see you at the next one. But be sure to send me back any more written comments after I pass this back. Does that work?
Sounds good.
Very good.
How does this work in terms of a work
Sounds good.
process? Is this agreeable?
I think it's agreeable. What gets confusing, because we've done it before, is that you just read everything. We put our changes in, then you're going to send us another one that's going to have the changes. Then somebody else is going to read it and find something wrong with the changes that we just put in it. So there's so many changes, I can't remember. I don't know what's going on by the end of, I feel like I'm in a whirlwind but at the end. So I wish there was like these changes would be in red, the next changes would be in blue, like, so we could make sure like what we talked about, it's in there, it's solid, done.
I can do that. As I pass them back, Charlene, I'll highlight and I will date each revision so it doesn't get too confusing as to which one is which. And then you can always just discard the previous one. So don't print it out unless you feel like you have to. Try to read them on screens so as not to waste the paper. Although, in fairness, I personally work better on paper as I'm editing. And then it will just continue to grow. So each of the subsections will only get this in-depth discussion once until the final draft at the beginning of December. But it can be built upon throughout. So I guess that's the best way I can envision doing this. If anybody has a better suggestion, I'm totally open to it.
If you're using Word, you might try to use the review feature and do a red line. So there's a review and edit, and it shows what was changed and your changes in text or in bubbles if you want. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know the review. I actually hate reading those sidebars because they're so teeny tiny.
You can do it in context, so you can do it in text, but there's a lot of folks, I get this with attorneys all the time with contracts. I have this is what I live in. This is my world, right? So they use Word and they go and they do revision, and in the revision, there is, you can see where the old words are stricken out and the new text is added. And it's all in situ, and if you accept the changes, then it makes the change. So it shows you what you had, how it changed. So, but that's
I'll try to remember to do it in review.
Everyone has to have Word to do it. Otherwise, you aren't looking at the same document. The alternative, of course, is to create it in Word, then save it as PDF and send it to everybody as PDF. Or you can use Microsoft Office for free, web-based, and everyone can look at it, and you can have share and ongoing editorial, but that's another whole level of technology.
Well, Judy suggested Google Docs, which is a function I've always hated, but might make sense in this context. So I'll monkey with it. If we come up with a better way to deliver the information, we can always change, right? There's nothing fixed in stone about this until it's fixed in stone.
It's collaborative.
Yeah,
stuff,
the dating is good. Dating would be definitely a good start. That way, as soon as I see the date, I know that's old. That helped on the regs on the cover sheet when we were going. Do you know what I mean? But once we had like the final draft and we were in it, that's when
versioning. Yeah, we call it versioning, and you can do that in Google. There's about 3 or 4 different platforms you can do it on. It's just whatever you're comfortable with and what you're set up to handle. I mean, I've had to adapt to so many different variations these days.
Well, regardless, you guys are going to get something back tomorrow.
Right.
'Cause
Don't
that's
put
what I do.
don't
Thank
put
you.
too tight a constraint on yourself. You've got a huge amount of work here, so. And you're
Yeah,
getting overtime. I mean,
nothing.
it's huge bucks here. I mean, I can see why you're motivated. So.
All right, guys, everybody have a drink and have a good night.
You bet.
Thanks.
That's
Bye-bye.
when I go disappear. I've been drinking. Thanks a lot, guys.
Good night, guys.